Thank you. So on behalf of the Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Commission, I would just like to say thank you to the City Council and to the community for participating in our parks and being engaged in our programs and participating in just a very, very rich culture of outdoor activity, recreation, and community services that are actually being provided as well by this incredible department and its staff. My very, very favorite part about this proclamation is the exclamation mark at the end of Parks Make Life Better, exclamation mark month. So let's all enjoy that and celebrate and check out all the amazing programs that are going on through the month and forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All right, could we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic, one nation, indivisible.
Mayor, prior to beginning, I would like to just confirm that Councilmember Erickson can hear us.
Okay.
Yes, I hear you.
Terrific. Thank you so much. I just wanted to make sure, since we switched sources, that you were still with us.
And is that whistling coming from his side? Do y'all hear that? Okay.
Heard what?
All right. I'll get to the source.
Oh.
Do we have any report on action taken in closed session other than the announcement before we went in closed session? City Attorney?
I'll just reiterate what I mentioned before we went into closed session, that item CS2 has been postponed till the August 12th meeting.
Thank you. We will go now to community announcements by members, followed by updates from any commissions, boards, and/or committees, and/or information items from staff. We'll start first with Councilmember Vieira.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm really looking forward to making this a bigger and better event. I want to thank the DBA, Daryl Menfee, for doing such an outstanding job down there, and all the sponsors that made this possible. So thank you very much, Daryl. Also, we had a grand opening of K&L Wines that we attended. I attended with Vice Mayor O'Brien and Mayor McMorrin. That was a new venue in the city. I think a great addition to the city. Really happy that they're here. Pride Ride, I wasn't able to make the ride because of my back. I showed up towards the end of the evening. But I'd like to thank all the participants who made this an eventful and successful event. Last but not least, I was able to attend the City of Inglewood's State of the City address. I sat with Alex Padilla, was able to speak and chat with Mayor Butts, Steve Ballmer. The guy's an amazing individual with just a ton of energy. Casey Wasserman, who's the chairman of the 2028 Olympics, as well as Kevin Demoff, who's the president of the LA Rams. Patrick Soon-Chong was there in attendance also. But, some of their collaboration, their main theme was sort of synergy and collaboration. And talking with Casey Wasserman, he had some really great ideas of how communities can participate in the Olympics. So I'm going to forward his info over to the Olympic Subcommittee. And I think there's some great possibilities for the children of our community to really participate and do some great things with the Olympic Committee. Other than that, that's it, Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Erickson?
I have nothing.
Thank you. Councilmember Pusa?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, hundreds of people rolled, skated, and scooted through the streets of Culver City and ended up on Main Street for a rally. It was a day full of pride and joy. So thank you to the organizers and to everyone who showed up. And just a reminder that July 23rd is Disability Pride Day. Recently, the California Attorney General Rob Bonta released the 2023 hate crime report, which showed that hate crimes events in California decreased by 7.1% from 2022 to 2023. But despite the overall decrease, the report showed that the Black, Jewish, Muslim, and the LGBTQ plus communities continue to be targeted and endangered at alarming rates. So needless to say, there's much work to continue to build an inclusive and safe city for all, and to work especially on our anti-hate series. And agreed, the 4th of July show hosted by the Downtown Business Association was wonderful. If I had a nickel for every ooh and ah, I would have been a wealthy man that night. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Vice Mayor O'Brien?
Thank you. Yeah, I too was able to participate in the Pride Ride and the rally. It was, the ride was fantastic. I love these big community events that gather our community, and especially when it's in support of a community of folks that, in many cities across the country are not supported. So that was a great event. I was not at the 4th of July event, or I guess it was on the 5th. I was back home in my hometown, celebrating the 4th with my family and high school friends, so that was a good time for me. But I do want to announce some great things that are coming up this week in Culver City. On Wednesday, there's a virtual meeting for the city's age-friendly action plan, specifically for folks over the age of 50 and over. It's from 6:30 to 8 p.m., again on Wednesday night, and you can navigate to the link on the Culver City website and click the events tab, and it'll be right on the front page there. And then beginning this Thursday is a summer concert series in downtown. It'll be every Thursday between now and the 29th of August. It starts at 7 a.m. I suggest getting early so you can get a good seat. And the theme this week is country music, and it sounds like they're going to have a dance instructor. So I don't know, maybe some Texas two-step or square dancing or something. Should be fun. I looked at the schedule. Next week is funk, soul, and jazz. Week after that's mariachi. Then after that, Latin music. August 8th is local music, rock and rap. And I think there's another jazz, funk, and soul. So a lot of great music choices. It's another great community event to take advantage of. On Saturday, there's a free compost giveaway at the Ropes Course up at Culver Park from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. So head on up there if you need compost for your garden. And then finally, also on Saturday, the Culver City Public Theater presents Gideon and the Blundersnorp. Guess you'll have to learn what that is. From 12 to 1:30 at Carlson Park. They suggest you bring a blanket or a low-seated lawn chair to enjoy it. And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. I have 3 hopefully quick ones. I'm incredibly grateful to community members, volunteers, our organizations, and city staff who had a hand in Culver City Pride, July 5th, the HR and Equity Office's bystander training, and Juneteenth. I'm incredibly just a +1 to what has been mentioned by our Vice Mayor. Want to make sure that folks participate in the Age-Friendly Action Plan and come out to the summer concert series. I know staff has been working hard on that, and I trust it will be enjoyable. And I just want to flag that our supervisor, Holly Mitchell, is having a book club, Racial Justice Learning Institute, right outside and to the left at Village Well at the end of this month on the 29th at 4:30. This is our only meeting for the month, but just wanted to flag it. Check out Village Well. It's a great space, and I trust that it will be a fantastic and enjoyable discussion about one of my favorite books, The Sum of Us by Heather McGee. So it's going to be fantastic. Also just want to uplift that July is Minority Mental Health Month. And Minority Mental Health Month theme this year is to be the source for better health. Improving health outcomes through our cultures, communities, and connections. So just want to uplift that. I'm sure the county is uplifting some resources around that. So I just wanted to lift that up, and as well, just always a plug for our a mobile crisis team as well that does outreach and support for our mental health community or our community members who have mental health needs. And also, as Council Member Puza mentioned, just wanted to lift up Disability Pride Month, which is celebrated every July, and an opportunity to honor the history, achievements, experiences, and struggles of the disability community and our community here in Culver City and beyond. So to wrap up, I want to invite our nonprofit United Empowerment Foundation and local artist Marty Mannings, who participated in our Juneteenth celebration here in Culver City, our third Juneteenth this year. And I just want them to share a little bit more about their contributions to the Juneteenth celebration and where folks can find the community mural that, in addition to many others, our Assembly member Isaac Bryan also worked on. So just want to give you a few moments and just express appreciation for being a part of our celebration.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen of the council. My name is Latrice Gwynn. I am the founder of United Empowerment Foundation, and I just want to express my gratitude and joy for the opportunity to be here tonight to just say thank you, and the opportunity to collaborate with the city for the second year in a row in your Juneteenth event. This year, we had the opportunity to provide a family activity area that allowed children and their parents to paint together, fostering creativity and a bonding environment for them to engage together. Additionally, we hosted a community Juneteenth mural that was illustrated by Marty Manning, who's here with me today. She is one of our summer interns. She recently graduated from Spelman College and is here working with us throughout the summer doing community beautification projects and doing it in community with, with schools and students while they're able to create beautiful spaces together. So I want to give Marty the opportunity to talk about the mural that she created that is here in the foyer that can be viewed temporarily. I think until the end of July it'll be here. So Marty.
Hello, my name is Marty Mannings. I just want to say it's been an honor to have the chance to lead this project. This has been the biggest art project since my graduation, and it's just been very fun to see the kids, parents, and just overall volunteers help complete this mural. I hope to continue bringing this type of joy in upcoming projects. Thank you so much.
So once again, we just want to thank the city for the opportunity to collaborate with you guys, and we look forward to other opportunities to do things with community and bringing collective ideas together to serve, all of the community of Culver City. So thank you again so much.
Thank you. If y'all know where the Dear Culver City project is, it's like right underneath, like, if you come through the green gates, it's right to your right side, I think. So check it out, it's pretty great. Do we have any updates from staff, City Clerk?
We have no updates except to let the audience and everyone know that item A2, action item 2, will not be considered this evening. So if you'd signed up to make any comments, And we'll repeat that later, but if you signed up just for A2, it's not happening tonight, and it should be on the agenda for August 12th instead.
All right. Thank you so much. We're going to move on to our presentation, which will be from the Trans-Latin Coalition regarding support of the LGBTQIA residents, QIA plus residents and neighbors. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Sorry, I will have some folder. Hi, good afternoon. Good evening, Mayor, esteemed council members. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. My name is Byron Jose. I'm the policy and advocacy strategist at the Trans-Latino Coalition. We are very grateful for the opportunity to present with you today in a way to support LGBTQA populations. As the largest trans-led organization, the Trans-Latino Coalition that's focused on transgender, gender-expansive, and intersex population, or TGI. But as we know, right, our communities provide rich artistic, cultural, and civic contributions to the city of Culver City and other jurisdictions throughout the county. So we definitely, when we speak about TGI populations, we meet all LGBTQA populations because we know that some of the more pressing and urgent issues impacting our communities impact those, including some of the rising hate crimes incidents. Anyway, so we'll get started, and I'll pass it over to B, who will introduce themselves, and we'll start the presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. My name is B. Curiel. I serve as the Capacity Building and Training Programs Manager at the Trans-Latino Coalition. And I can go ahead and get started in just talking a little bit about our organization. So our organization was founded in 2009 as a grassroots response to not just the violence and injustice that a lot of our trans immigrant, specifically like Latina women, were facing, but also as a response to the lack of resources that our communities had from LGBTQ serving organizations as well as immigrant or Latina serving community-based organizations. So the mission of our organization is to advocate for specific needs of trans Latinos residing in the U.S. and to plan strategies to improve our overall quality of life. And so just highlighting one of our values here is good resource administration, knowing that, again, a lot of these resources are not created with our community members in mind. We do a lot of advocacy to just make sure that our community members, transgender, gender diverse, and intersex, have access to resources. And so the vision is really to uplift and empower future leaders that are transgender to kind of continue the work in their communities and to also empower them to be leaders within their own respective communities. So just as an overview, just as an example, we do have a drop-in center currently in our office in Koreatown, and we do offer free meals Monday through Friday, a free warm meal for lunch. And just to give you all an idea of, in 2003, there were over 5,000, our meals were accessed over 5,000 times. We do also provide things like toiletries, clothing, gender-affirming care. Sometimes we provide makeup, just things that help uplift and support our community members' basic needs. Whatever donations that we have to give, we do. And a lot of times it starts with food, toiletries, clothing, etc. Additionally, we do have a program such as anti-hate and violence prevention programs. We do a lot of HIV prevention and outreach. And while community members are accessing different services at our organization, we do also offer mental health services to support. And a lot of the times, the responsiveness to just one being transgender or LGBTQ, but additionally, these are also mental health clinicians that speak Spanish. So it's really difficult sometimes for our community members to get access to that specific intersection of resources. Additional programs include things like reentry services. We have 3 reentry programs. We support folks coming out of immigration detention, California state prisons, as well as county jails. We provide things like workforce development, things like harm reduction and substance use support for that specific population. We do also provide things like rental assistance, transportation assistance, resume building. Sometimes we bring in companies like Bank of America to provide workshops for our community members. We provide things like legal services. A lot of our folks are asylum seekers, and so that's the bulk. We do work with Represent LA to provide some of that free representation for our community members. We also have a small emergency and transitional housing called the Hope House, and it is a bridge housing program that provides also emergency beds. Unfortunately, it is not big enough to meet the capacity that our community has, as often many of us do face homelessness at some point in our lives, but we do have that to offer our community members and support to connect them to more long-term resources that have the housing units available. We do offer things like workforce development, like I mentioned, leadership development opportunities. We're about to kickstart a mentorship program, and just highlighting one of our programs here is the Center for Excellence for Elderly Trans program for aging populations, which we call the Diamonds. And this was a group of really awesome, fabulous transgender women who did a lot of advocacy efforts. We just launched a report here that says Aging with Dignity, a policy report of aging trans people in LA, just allowing them to engage in advocacy so that we understand what the needs are for this aging population that is often neglected as well by those services. These are a group of also a generation that also survived 2 pandemics, right? We have the HIV epidemic and also COVID. And just to highlight, right, the question is, how can Culver City also show up for LGBTQIA residents? We just wanted to highlight here a program that we did with the partnership of the City of West Hollywood. It's called the Transforming Resources and Unveiling Excellence Program, or the TRUE program. And with this program, we partnered with the city to be able to provide outreach services to that specific city and provide linkages to, we know that the City of West Hollywood is a hub, a safety hub, right, for LGBTQIA community members, but even within that hub, we do see a lot of transgender, a lot of the people facing homelessness are transgender or gender expansive. And so we do provide valuable outreach and connect people with basic needs such as housing, employment, medical care. We do have the case management program that helps our case manager connect with the community members, provide that strength-based assessment and develop tools. So we see this as kind of a model that we could use with other jurisdictions such as Culver City to provide that, so we can be that first resource for these community members that may be struggling with accessing things like housing and employment. So just provide that cultural lens of being, one, we offering services in Spanish, but also having that LGBTQIA lens or that transgender lens specifically. Another great way to show up for our community members is through education and training. This is the work that I specifically do. Again, a lot of these programs or resources are not created with us in mind, right? So we call our training Cultural Transformation Training Series because it does take a little bit of a culture shift or a culture transformation to be able to have that lens that really integrates and includes our community members safely. So we have some topics here that our training can touch upon. We do a lot of work with different housing services providers, homelessness services providers across LA County to provide not just training, but technical assistance. So a lot of the work that I do is I work with, for example, HR to develop policies that are specifically targeted to ensure that transgender workforce are safe and included, and we address things such as discrimination, and there's plans of actions. I also work with executive leadership to develop things like safety plans specifically for transgender members in shelters, because we know that shelters are segregated by sex. Sometimes they're not so friendly for transgender individuals. And so a lot of the training that I do is with community-based organizations, service providers, healthcare providers. We're recently working with the 988 National Crisis Hotline to just provide some of that valuable insight, especially now where there's so much misinformation about our transgender community that's coming through mainstream media. It's really important to get folks educated and that we can address some of the common misconceptions that are often talked about. Yeah. So I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Byron to talk a little bit about the advocacy work that we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, B. For the sake of time, I guess if you have any questions at the end, you can ask us about the programs. But they're, in addition to the key critical services that we provide, we also lead various local, county, and state policy and budget advocacy work. Going back to the TRUE program and the culture transformation work, as we know, right, we are able to connect and link all LGBTQA and all city and county residents and refer them to other providers or other cultural competent people, even if they're not LGBTQA. And then, for example, we are the largest translate organization. We're currently based in Koreatown, but we have people from all over the county, all over the city, but also even other counties and as far as the Inland Empire. And to B's point, we also do have some report from SPA 5. We know that, right, like those boundaries, the city boundaries are not necessarily like off limits. So we have people, different populations coming to and from. So we have neighboring city, city of LA, and how do we able to connect people to those resources. So some of the work that I get to lead as the policy advocacy strategist is engaging community members, TGI community members, and some of the local work, specifically engaging, be able to inform some of these policy work. We are also a trusted messenger and a partner on various county initiatives such as RD, Anti-Racism, Diversity and Inclusion, CFCI, Care First Community Investment, our president and CEO, who's currently on sabbatical, so she couldn't be here today, but she's an alternate member of that advisory committee at the county. As well as the TGI needs assessment work that we've been doing at the county since 2022. And that's really looking into across all departments and across all districts in the county to ensure that there's services for TGI populations and LGBTQA populations. Thank you. So in your folders attached, there's some of these reports and presentations that we have worked on last month in June. The Trans-Latina Coalition, along with the William Institute and Dr. Ferrer at the Department of Public Health, presented at the Board of Supervisors the lived experience of LGBTQA populations in LA County, as well as the transgender and non-binary quality of life reports. So we'll go over into some of those recommendations in a minute, some of the highlights. There's also a report commissioned by the City of Los Angeles, by the then Garcetti administration. So with the new council members, with the new Bass administration, we've been able to kind of move forward some of that work. That's also included in your packet. And then lastly, it is the current unmet needs letter, which is a community request for TGI's Wellness, Equity, and Care Coordination. And again, that's asking LA County specifically to invest $7 million, and in partnership with the City of Los Angeles, $3 million, so for a total of $10 million investment in coordination, care, and programs and services for populations. In 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, the Trans-Latina Coalition, along with other trans-led organizations, TGI-led organizations across the state, were able to pass AB 2218, which established the California TGI Wellness and Equity Fund, which was a $13 million investment throughout the state for TGI-led and TGI-serving organizations to provide some of the services, right? So how do we look into state, county, and even city jurisdictions, while also understanding the political climate across the country, not just for LGBTQA populations, but specifically transgender youth and elders. Next slide. So I don't know where the time is, so I'll try to keep this brief. But some of the recommendations that came from the survey led by the William Institute and the Trans-Latina Coalition presented at the Board of Supervisors were addressing the highest cost of living, so looking at housing, how do we create pathways to employment and other higher wages, and how do we ensure there's trans-affirming shelters. Cool, thank you. So some of the other things are providing better healthcare access and increased public safety connectedness, and also really looking into immigrants. So again, based on the demographics of the county, geographical position, right? We know that there's a lot of asylum and political refugees, but also not just all from other countries at this point, even from other states, right? Like Texas and Florida that are coming here. So how are we capturing that data? How are we providing services for those populations? And then lastly, how do we provide access to accurate identity documentations in different institutions and services needed? So how do we provide pathway for non-binary people to become leaders in all areas of life? looking into ways that we can support expanding some of the services that already exist. The Trans Latina Coalition is one of the largest trans-led organizations, but there are other trans-led organizations, other LGBTQ organizations that specifically cater to different ethnic groups or different population, different community groups, a hub. So how can the county work with those organizations and groups as trusted messengers and co-location of services? Improving healthcare access, offering education opportunities, providing job training and placement, developing leadership skills, and then at the end of the day, how are we truly uplifting the lives and intentionally investing in TGI communities? So to wrap it up, True program is a great partnership between the city and community-based organization, right, to provide services, some of the capacity building training, and then lastly, right, in addition to doing some of the policy or some of the commission reports for Culver City specific, looking into ways to asking Supervisor Mitchell and the rest of the Board of Supervisors to truly invest in these services for TGI populations and the rest of LGBT communities. I'll set some time for questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's go first to Councilmember Erickson since he's remote. If he's not ready, that's okay.
I have nothing.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Vera?
First off, thank you very much for the presentation. I'm looking forward to really getting into this packet and learning more. Some of the info you've already shared, there's things that I haven't really even thought of in terms of housing and you know, the safety issues and whatnot. So I really appreciate your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councilmember Fuza?
Thank you for the presentation. We offer some of those services, but it's so important to offer those with cultural competency to make people feel comfortable and where they can really open up so they can get the services that they need and move through the system with ease. You mentioned West Hollywood, which has, you know, a large LGBTQ plus population. We're still kind of defining and figuring out what our population here is in Culver City, trying to create more inclusive spaces. Can you talk a little bit about, like, how do you work with cities that are in similar situations like Culver City?
So on a programmatic level, essentially the model of the program is to hire one peer navigator. It's often something that we advocate for because as some of our community members move through, whether it's healthcare, whether it's substance use treatment, housing, having a peer navigator there every step of the way to support them through that process, which can be really difficult, has been an evidence-based kind of practice. So the program entails, it's kind of like a contract with the city of West Hollywood. So the program, the deliverables are outreaching to maybe 50 to 100 people within a year, linking them, providing those linkages, tracking things like appointments, tracking incentives, the outcomes of what it was like to work with the client, et cetera. And so we provide reports back to the city of West Hollywood with how many linkages we were able to provide, how many people we did outreach to at their parks or at their public spaces. So our peer navigator and outreach specialist goes into specific days and times to the city of West Hollywood, whether it's nightlife, whether it's in the daytime with the parks. And then we also do training for the city, for example, Parks and Recreation Department, so that they know that when they encounter someone having a mental health crisis or experiencing homelessness, they can link those people to us. So it's a partnership where we're just kind of there available for people who are transgender, gender diverse, and need just specific support moving them into getting the services, getting them connected to housing options or treatment or, you know, whatever it is that they need at the moment. And sometimes it's transportation, it's things like problem solving. Like maybe they just need enough money to buy a train ticket back to their family. A lot of people come to West Hollywood with that vision in mind that it's gonna be a safe haven without realizing that there's still a lot of grief towards the transgender community, even in the city of West Hollywood. So we do a lot of work to support those community members.
Great. So when that data comes back like on an annual basis, and then you determine how it's going to go the subsequent year or following year.
So we could do like quarterly reports back We do provide reports on I think a quarterly basis every year. And the contract is like a 3-year contract. So it looks maybe like 250,000 for like 3 years or 150,000 for the exact number, but it's enough for like the one full staff member, and then the admin costs. So it's looks like it's a contract that renews every 3 years or so.
Great, thank you. And then the funding, is that through a grant? Is that through the county, or is that from the city, or is it a combination of?
It comes through the city.
Okay,
It's a contract that we have with the city.
thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, and a lot of these are pilot programs, right? So we are looking to really formulate what that could look like to serve best the need of, for example, Culver City compared to how West Hollywood looks like demographically.
Great.
Yeah,
Got it. Thank you.
thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you so much for your presentation, all the education that you provide to us and to the community. I think it's a really needed service. Obviously, your organization's young and it's growing because of the need. And I, caught some of the things that you said about connecting through parks, and then your over 50 population, and you mentioned giving cities, I guess, maybe a toolbox that they could, a referral process. And I think for Culver City, maybe that's a good start, through our parks, through our senior center, maybe through our mobile crisis team, because they meet people in need all the time. I think those are good starter places to gauge what the need is in our community, and maybe in the future see where that goes. But I really appreciate everything you're doing. Thank you.
No, thank you. And I just want to briefly add to your point also, is how do we leverage then, right, with county partners and different departments within the county that are already providing services like the mobile units here in Culver City, so that there's a trans-specific lens, and also supporting some of the policy work that we're leading at the county.
Thank you so much.
So before y'all go, thank you so much for the presentation. Really, really appreciate it. And I was fortunate enough to have a tour of the space. So I really appreciate the work that you all have been doing, and just rooting for your overall success, because the work is just, folks are not being seen and heard, and y'all are providing a safe space for folks. So it's incredibly meaningful. So just thank you. I was looking at the 2024 anti-trans bills trackers, just to kind of prepare for this. And there's been a number, like hundreds and hundreds of bills. Some of them have failed, some of them have passed across 43 states in our country. And I know that folks have a specific view of California and what we believe, but we know that there have been fights around many things across even Southern California. So we're not insulated. It's not a bubble. There's still a lot of education and need, even right here at home. So do y'all see the numbers of need going up as sort of this climate and the ground is continuing to move, and just like various narratives are coming up around harm and risk of violence and just all these things? So I'm just wondering what impact that is having on your current workload in the county, and if you're seeing any trends on the west side as you engage with WeHo or any other spaces.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And definitely the different compounding issues that overlap and intersect our communities. I would say specifically, right, even with the political climate, or right, people's views or openness to LGBTQness or queerness, right, is when we look at housing, right? So whether it's housing or whether it's some of the incidents of hate crimes or violence, right, even after COVID, we're still looking at specifically trans Latina women, like trans women, Black trans women, brown trans women, who are the target because they're visible, they're the most visible, and we live in a city, in a county, right, where people need to be able to survive and be public, visibly public. So how do we then, right, when we look into those policy, those reports, that data, we're not just looking at this community as number or statistics, but how are we intentionally investing and addressing some of those things? I'm not sure if you want to.
Yeah, Definitely echoing the sentiment that even, I think some folks paint like California or Southern California as like a really progressive space, but we do still see a lot of discrimination happening. A lot of times it's silent discrimination or invisible discrimination, like with the housing markets. Even some of our community members who can't afford housing have a really hard time getting it. And, there was just an incident a few months ago of a young Latina trans woman who was murdered here in LA County. And so these things are still happening through, I think that compounding and that intersection of being a woman of color and also trans, there's a significant risk to things like policing, to things like incarceration, homelessness, which also creates criminalization and incarceration. So providing any type of service, such as like food or clothing, it really helps support them, to keep them off the street. And that becomes things like HIV prevention. A lot of what we've seen historically of the support, specifically from the government, come to trans community members has been through HIV and AIDS. But we are trying to now kind of move, given that there's been so much like pharmaceutical progress made towards keeping like HIV and AIDS kind of contained, we are advocating for why should our community be tied to disease in order to receive things like housing vouchers and things like that. So that's kind of been some of the need. We are in the future going to launch a housing needs report that we've been working on. We've done over 7 different focus groups across the county to just hear what has been the specific challenges and barriers of our communities accessing not just permanent housing, but housing resources to really paint a picture, a robust picture of here in LA County. So a lot of the research that's done here locally is done by us, for us. So it's really important to kind of continue supporting the work we're doing.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So my last question, it's a question. So we're in the middle of our racial equity action plan. I think it's important as we think about, I don't know if y'all, Culver City was historically a sundown town, and there's a lot with that. But the intersection, as you were mentioning, between race, sexuality, ability, it is Disability Pride Month, religion, like there's so many ways that folks can experience marginalization across, just existing, right? And I'm wondering if y'all have been a part of like plans, and because there was a long list of, I hope y'all can send us those slides, but there was a long list of tools or trainings that it looked like y'all offer. Is that a process that you have been a part of before? Because I hope, even though I think the intention of the report is to focus more on, dealing with racial discrimination and ensuring that we're aware of those things, I'm hopeful that we can also bring in these other areas that we know absolutely impact how folks are experiencing city services and just the city overall in Culver City. So I'm wondering, out of that list, or have y'all been a part of various like equity plans or actions, or how to move forward as y'all have consulted with the county and other resources on the RD plans and everything else that y'all have been involved. So I just was curious if there was capacity for that, or if that's something that y'all have worked on in the past.
For the training specifically?
Yeah, I'll let B mention the trainings and the kind of like the toolkits, but specifically for RD, the anti-racism, diversity and inclusion initiative at the county. We've been working really close with Dr. Scorza there, but specifically we were trusted messengers. So when the county was looking into helping inform that plan, we were able to host not just listening sessions, but also do surveys. And as we know, right, the county wanted to prioritize specific populations, in this case, transgender, gender-sensitive, intersex population. And how do we able to do that through listening sessions, right, or through surveys that are more like printed, and people are guided through that process for different issues, while also working with RD's overall community engagement work. So how do we tailor that? And also, I'll pass the to specific trainings with some of the cities.
Yeah, so we, the training that we have a robust list of modules that we have for training. It's the work that I kind of kickstarted at the organization. So first through that program where we provided free training for shelter programs, interim housing. So we've kind of grown from that. For example, we work with City District 1 and Los Angeles to provide gender justice training, which was a 3-parter in-depth gender justice training for the staff members to really get to know how their own identities inform the work. So a lot of the trainings we provide kind of focus on that intersection of, because through that gender justice lens, we're also able to talk about things like racial justice, economic justice, and how it's all integrated. And so the work that I do with partners like City District 1 and others is to provide a consultation of like what folks are looking for in a toolkit or in technical assistance or in training. And then we kind of develop a plan together for goals and curriculum, and then go about kind of coordinating that. So that's a little bit of my process for the cultural transformation training. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
It absolutely does. So the last thing, this wasn't written down, but like, do y'all see that this work is being done if y'all are not in the space? Like, are people asking the right questions? Are they lifting up specific things so that like folks that are members of the LGBTQIA community would either identify themselves or have the opportunity to give feedback to governments or cities, or, you know, if y'all are not in the space, are they capturing that voice?
So from what I've seen, and I know Byron can speak on this too, we're often the ones paving the way. So for example, the City District 1 training happened, I think specifically because Eunices Hernandez is also a member of the LGBTQI community. So then she fostered that, or intentionally invested in something like that for her team. But we're seeing, like, for example, I'm a member of the Latinx Experiencing Homelessness Task Force at the county level. And if I don't bring transgender issues up, they're not brought up at all. And so a lot of this work is paving the way ourselves for those conversations.
Yeah, and I just wanted to briefly add to your kind of like the racial equity plan. I think one of the other things that we work with county departments or the county partners, any of the departments themselves that are providing the services to our communities, our constituents, are how do we then are able to, how can the county hire people that like who are also LGBTQA, who look like the community so it can be welcoming, but also, right, some of the things as the county continue to expand and do more pride celebrations, there have been kind of like backlash in different areas. So how can county institutions, not just libraries, we're funny enough in the report is like the only space that's friendly for all LGBTQ people with libraries. Everyone loves the library. So how can there be visibility? How can there be support year round, right? And not just like in June or not just for a week or a day. And how can the county, or in this case, the city, right, be actively anti-racist and be actively inclusive and be actively diverse, right? And some of that looks like intentionally investing in some of these services for community members, given some of the legacy and the work of who has been excluded in the past.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate y'all coming out and being so generous with your time.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. We're going to move on to joint public comment. City Clerk, how many comments do we have?
We currently have 9 speakers signed up.
Okay, great. Let's move forward.
Okay, and before we begin, I'm going to read our statement regarding hate speech. Members of the public have a right to speak on matters that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of City Council. Strongly denounces hate speech and does not tolerate disruptive behavior in our meetings. Culver City prides itself on its diverse community and inclusion of all persons. We are committed to creating a safe space in the city and in these chambers where members of our community feel included and respected.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and call everyone's name so that everyone can be prepared. First up, we have Robin Ruth Prinz, followed by Louise Reichlin, Daryl Minthy, Loretta Lorraine, Melissa Sanders, Eric Sims, Marcy Bond, Jim Clark, and Matt Inouye. First up, we have Robin Ruth Prinz. Not seeing them online or in council chamber. Our next speaker is Luis Reichland. Luis, you've been unmuted. Go ahead.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if I could do that myself. Louise Reichland and Dancers, Los Angeles Choreographers and Dancers, is excited and honored to again have a Culver City Arts Grant. We're announcing our second full concert in 2 years at the Culver City Ivy Substation this weekend. I'm the founding director of our 45-year-old nonprofit company. Past Culver City projects have ranged from our first children's and family show production at the Ivy Substation, where we also worked with students from Culver City in The Patchwork Girl of Oz, to the premiere of another family production at the Jazz Bakery, The Better to Bite You With, both also presented by other cities, including Fontana and LA. And we produce 4 productions for the Culver City Senior Center, including Tap Dance Widows Club, A Jewish Child's Story, both of which then moved on to the Las Vegas Library System and Santa Barbara and New York City, and the recently reimagined urban and tribal dances. Our grant this year includes live production at the Ivy Substation to reimagine the 2 dances from the critically acclaimed section of urban and tribal dances from the early 90s, Wedding and War. Unfortunately, war is still with us. And Reboot. Coming up this weekend on Friday at 7 p.m., Saturday and Sunday with a 2 p.m. matinee at the Ivy Substation. Words from some of our past reviews include excitement, exhilaration, entertainment, humor, fear, fun, isolation and interconnectedness, illumination, probing and provocative work, transcendence, and triumph. The dance multimedia program includes the joyful Gotta Get Up and our newest works, Metro, Transformation, and Heart. Announcements are up on the Culver City website arts page with the Eventbrite site for tickets. We really hope to see you there. Los Angeles Choreographers and Dancers has a mission to create high-quality, innovative concert work, communicate to a diverse audience by infusing dance with the cultural influences found in Culver City and Los Angeles, and to enlarge an educated dance audience in populations typically underexposed to the arts, especially youth. By involving audiences with participatory activities, we explore humanistic themes. In this way, LAC&D is committed to using dance as a unifying force that crosses cultural, generational, language, and socioeconomic lines. Please join us this weekend for soulful, imaginative dance that empowers you, our diverse audience members, to expand our shared understanding of life. And the ticket on Eventbrite is heartlacd.eventbrite.com. Thank you so much. And this has been Louise Reichland.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Daryl Minthy.
Hi, my name is Daryl Minthy. I'm the Executive Director of the Culver City Downtown Business Association, and I wanted to say a few words about our Independence Drone Show on Friday. I have a whole list of people I wanted to thank. I'm actually going to do something completely different, so hope you will forgive me for not doing that. I want to say thanks to City Council and to the Economic Development team for really taking a chance and believing in us to do something that nobody done before. I want to thank the Exchange Club for being so gracious about a transition that could not have been easy. But mostly, I really want to thank the people of Culver City for showing up and embracing something that is different and was a change. You know, I love the fireworks. People love the fireworks. We used to go to the high school before I was at West LA College. This was a big thing. And I tell you, I didn't know it was going to happen, and I braced myself all week for all the angry emails and texts that I expected to get. But the people of Culver City are such an amazing, forward-looking, future-looking people. Everyone just turned the page and said, what's next? And we had, I think, the largest crowd we've ever had in downtown Culver City. And, you know, if you haven't seen it, watch the YouTube and wait for the roar of the crowd when the words Culver City appeared in lights. The people of this city love this city. They really do. And we really saw it that night. I want to thank everyone who had a hand in making that happen. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Loretta Lorraine.
Good evening. I'm Miss Loretta Lorraine. I'm an OG from, I keep it real, I keep it old school. I started it many years, I've been an activist. I'm also with Trans Latina. I am one of the Diamonds, older ladies. I'm in my 80s and I'm here. I started with Liz Taylor many years ago. I got to meet her, amazing woman. And Culver City is one of the places I came here many years ago. I've been here from 1968. I have seen the work of Culver City. I have not seen y'all do nothing for the transgender community. There has been transgender community have lived here. I had visited some of the girls, and it's time that y'all can do something for the transgender community, especially women of my age and women of color have been homeless and have been going through a lot. I have known Culver City because it's a conservative city, and I respect that it's a clean city, and I have been coming here for many, many years, and I have seen, I love your restaurants, I love the clean city and all that, but also the LGBT, not very good seeing it before, because we come here, but we also, I know about Sepulveda Boulevard, I've seen girls being run off by guys in uniforms like that. They say, go back to West Hollywood, take that stuff over there. Transgender women do live here, but they live in shadows. Why should somebody live in shadows if they want to be who they want to be? I'm me. I've always been Miss Loretta Lorraine. I'm an old transgender, and I am proud to be who I am. God has made me, my mother has made me, and I am pleased who I am. And let somebody in this city, and y'all can combine and help the transgender community, also the LGBT, because this city is beautiful, and this city has people from the LGBT and transgenders living here, but they don't have to live in those shadows. And that's why that organization is willing to help them and make a better life for them. Then they don't have to live in those shadows and go through mental health and age and live and die by themselves. Because, you know, it's sad when somebody has to age and live in shadows. It's beautiful to be who you are and come and combine this beautiful city that you have here, clean. And I've been coming here for, oh, Lord, I love it. You have beautiful restaurants, it's clean. I go to Venice, they live in Venice. There are also people in Venice living in those shadows. And Santa Monica, the city of Santa Monica, and people should not live in shadows. They should come out and explore who they are and enjoy your city. Thank you very much. I'm Ms. Loretta Lorraine.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Melissa Sanders. Melissa, you've been unmuted. Go ahead.
Everyone, and I loved this last speaker, so I'm glad she came this evening. I actually just wanted to also thank Daryl and the Downtown Business Association and all the sponsors, Amazon and HackNet, everyone. That was one of the best nights I think Culver City has had in a very long time, and I hope it becomes an annual event and that we can explore other ways to do something really phenomenal, environmentally friendly and pet friendly and all that other stuff. So that was one. And I took your circulator and it worked. So thank you. It was really fun, met some great people. So I was glad to see it was running and on time, and it was great. So there you go. Also, I just wanted to remind everyone that, you know, we as a city really need to start thinking outside the box for housing. And I'd love to explore ways to use properties and repurpose properties that are just hanging out. We've got a Bed Bath & Beyond shell that could be perhaps utilized for some affordable housing units. We've got a triangle on Jefferson and Sepulveda just sitting there that, you know, the developers aren't moving forward that we could do something with. I think that, you know, we as a city need to look at what we have and what we can use to our benefit to do that. And I hope that we can look at some alternative ways to bring people affordably into Culver City and stop doing this, insane market rate, have to earn over $250,000 to rent a one bedroom in Culver City. So I really would like to look at some options. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Eric Sims. Eric, you've been unmuted. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, and friends. My name is Eric Sims. I'm here representing Center Theater Group and the Kirk Douglas Theater. First, I want to acknowledge how awesome it was to see the theater up in lights in the sky during the aerial drone show, and to thank Daryl and the sponsors, the DBA staff, my fellow DBA members, and everyone in the city for just an amazing evening. And what I've actually come for is to ask that you agendize marketing sponsorship of our upcoming production of Cat Kid Comic Club the musical, so that we can utilize these street pole banners in downtown Culver City. Much like our smash hit production of Dogman the musical, Cat Kid is based on the books of Dave Pilkey and is produced by TheaterWorks USA. We hope to use the street pole banners in the same fashion we did for Dogman, sharing them throughout the holiday season with the DBA so that we can generate excitement and spread the word about this terrific family show. CTG will print and install the banners at our expense. We are seeking only the minimum sponsorship to be able to use these locations to fully promote the show. Last year's production of Dogman brought over 20,000 audience members to downtown Culver City during the holiday season. And we're hoping that Cat Kid can be just as successful. So we ask you consider agendizing the sponsorship at the next meeting, so together we can bring another hugely successful show to our community, providing an uplift to local school kids, families, and businesses alike. And who knows, who might make an appearance at the tree lighting this year. So thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Marcy Bond.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. First off, I want to thank you for the opportunity to serve Culver City as a Commissioner of the Parks, Recs, and Community Services Commission. I'm very excited about it. I hope I'll still be excited about it 4 years from now. I also wanted to thank the city as well as the business community for putting on that awesome drone show. My family and I walked the 1.5 miles to get there rather than deal with traffic. And we enjoyed every single moment of it. It was great to see so many people down there. And the other thing I would like to talk about is I do ride around the town on my bike, and I also, as I said, we walk to downtown. And one of the things that I noticed about the streets is that they're starting to look and feel very, very bumpy. If you go down Farragut east of Overland, and so Franklin turns into Farragut, I frequently take that to ride my bike down to the farmer's market. And it's starting to, the asphalt is beginning to start to look like patchwork. So we have square, 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 and it's just cracking and falling apart. Same thing, the same thing is happening on Braddock in some areas where we have at our streets. The same thing's happening in Clarkdale. I don't know the last time those streets were paved, but it looks like it was in the last millennium. So the reason I'm talking about this is I feel like we need to be focusing on some of these things rather than trying to change the structure of our streets, like what we have on Overland, talking about putting in the bike lanes, when we have all of these streets that desperately need to be repaved. There is loose gravel on there because the streets are starting to fall apart. And the asphalt is coming apart, and it's beyond being able to patch it, which when you patch with asphalt like that, you're going to end up with a larger pothole. I know this because my family used to have a gravel rock pit, and we used to provide the asphalt to the cities and the county and the state in order to fill those potholes. And when you fill them with new asphalt, you're just going to get larger potholes. So I think we really need to be concentrating on what to fix rather than what to add right at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jim Clark. Jim, you've been unmuted. Go ahead.
City Committee. Several, can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Oh, great, thanks. Jim Clark, board member of the Culver City Sister City Committee. Several months ago, we appeared before you to discuss the possibility of entering into sister city relationships with two new cities, Uddevalla, Sweden, and Swakopmund, Namibia. You gave us the green light to pursue discussions with both cities. I want to report to you that our discussions with both cities are moving forward. But tonight I want to discuss our potential relationship with Uddevalla. Since we met with you, we have had an exchange of letters between students of Uddevalla and Culver City, and communication between our sister city leadership and Mayor Christina Nielsen of Uddevalla. It is our intention to prepare a letter for both the Culver City Council and Uddevalla City Council outlining how the proposed relationship would evolve and what activities we would pursue between our two cities. It is our hope that both cities can approve our proposed sister city relationship agreement prior to your last meeting in November. So my comments tonight are just to give you a heads up that we will be requesting an agenda item in the near future to approve our newest sister city, Uddevalla. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Matt Inoue.
Hello, Council. How's it going today? My name is Matt Inoue. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm the Manager of Policy and Community Engagement with the Trans-Latina Coalition. First, thank you so much for allowing time to engage with us in a very meaningful way. I think this is a really important next step in how city and nonprofits engage each other, especially transgender, gender expansive, and intersex organizations like ours. You know, the TGI community all across LA County is experiencing a state of emergency right now. In the LA County Human Relations Report, there were 44 anti-transgender crimes, which is actually the largest number ever documented in LA County. 91% of these crimes were actually violent, and it's actually a rate much higher than racial, sexual orientation, and religious attacks. So I say that because, again, the TGI community is in a state of emergency and wanted to really highlight that. We're at a very critical moment in politics, in local politics, where these things really matter and we have to have a conversation. So I really appreciate the mayor and Councilmember Puza for visiting our center. I really appreciate that. And you know, I also want to really highlight that we'll be following up with your offices to really see how we can create and foster a relationship. So you'll be seeing a lot more of us. Also want to highlight some of the initiatives that my team had talked about. So we are working with the supervisors on a TGI Wellness Equity and Care Coordination that really involves you all too. So we'll be following up about that, as well as ways to support training. So if y'all need training, or if there's an opportunity to partner on trainings, we're happy to have that conversation as well. As well as looking at models in which cities like Culver City can really step up for LGBTQ communities after Pride Month, right? The work is not just in June, but it's beyond June. It's all year round. So thank you so much for allowing us the time, the space, and the energy, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you. That was our final speaker.
Okay. right, can I have a motion of a receipt and filing of the correspondence we received, I think by 3 p.m.?
Sorry, Mayor, can we start again, please?
Moving to receipt and filing of correspondence, can I have a motion and a second on receiving and filing the correspondence we have received by 3 p.m.?
Thank you. I have a motion by Councilmember Vera, a second by Vice Mayor O'Brien, and we will do a voice vote. How do you vote, Councilmember Vera?
Aye.
Councilmember Puza?
Aye.
Councilmember Erickson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor O'Brien?
Aye.
And Mayor McMorrin?
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. We will proceed with the order of the agenda as stated with the modification as mentioned by, I think, City Attorney, that we will not be dealing or moving forward with A2 in this meeting, and it will go to a future agenda item. So our next item will be consent. Colleagues, is there anything to pull? Councilmember Erickson?
Nothing.
Okay. Councilmember Vera?
C11.
Okay. Councilmember Puza?
No, Mayor.
Vice Mayor O'Brien?
No, Mayor.
I'd like to pull 4 and 6. And are there any comments from the public on any consent items, City Clerk?
Yes, we have public comments on items C3, C4, C5, and C11.
3, 4, 5, and 11. All right, let's proceed in order. Let's start with C3. Can we have a very brief staff report?
Good evening, Mayor and Vice Mayor and Council members. I'm Dimitri, Director of Public Works. Very briefly, this item before you tonight is to replace badly needed windows that need replacement at the police station. The police station was built in 1965. However, its building footprint was expanded in 1997 to include an adjacent surface parking lot. The expansion project was also included installation of a mosaic and a new facade that spans the entire Duquesne Avenue frontage to visually tie the old and expanded sections of the building together. Los Angeles Fire Station numbers 43 and 94 are located just outside the city boundaries of our city, and several times a day, everybody hears the engines travel along Duquesne Avenue to pass through the city when responding to emergency calls. The high frequency of their sirens blaring has proven disruptive to the operation of the police department. So we put together a CIP to provide brand-new state-of-the-art windows at the police station with double panes to provide the necessary insulation. We bid out the project in March 2024. Excuse me. We received 2 bids, and tonight we are recommending new build construction and restoration as the lowest responsive and responsible bidder in the amount of $394,300, and the money is already in the budget. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Can we hear from the public comments?
All righty. Melissa Sanders, you have been unmuted. Go ahead.
Just a quick, obviously, if we're going to be a green city, we should have a green police department. So anything to make us more efficient and more effective, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. That was our final speaker.
Okay, thank you. Can we move to C4? Thank you so much, Director Yanni.
Hello, Mayor. This is Tevis Barnes, Housing and Human Services Director. Uh, Do you want a brief report from staff?
Yes, very brief. Thank you.
I'm going to turn it over to Shannon Lewis, who is oversees our rent control and tenant protection ordinances.
Good evening. As Tevis mentioned, my name is Shannon Lewis, and I am our rent stabilization coordinator overseeing our rent control and tenant protections program. Very briefly, I wanted to just provide a little bit of background on the program. On August 12th, 2019, City Council adopted an urgency interim rent control ordinance, which established rent control and tenant protections measures for a 12-month period. On June 11, 2020, the interim rent control ordinance was extended through October 31st, 2020. And then the ordinances were brought back September 29th, 2020, and permanently adopted by council on that same date and went into effect permanently on October 30th, 2020. Over this past fiscal year, we have received over 3,500 inquiries via calls, emails, and walk-ins from the public. The larger topics of interest have been evictions, rent control, registration, and untenable conditions. Those continue to serve as our leading topics of interest year over year. We've had 4 petitions for noncompliance filed, mostly for tenants coming to us for housing services reductions. So that could be losing something like a garage or losing parking, losing storage, coming to us to have their rent adjustment in response to that service loss. We have not had any applications for rent adjustments filed by landlords to increase rents above the allowable limit. But we have had 2 capital improvement pass-through applications filed. We have had 2 capital improvement pass-through applications filed with landlords requesting to not necessarily increase rents, but to pass through the cost of improvements at their properties to the tenants in order to be able to make up for cost for doing improvements at the properties. And lastly, one of the bigger applications that we've had filed this year are replacement unit determinations, which are in response to state law requiring landlords to replace rental units if they are doing any type of demolition at the property. So we've had 7 of those come in, and we're continuously receiving those. We are currently at 85%, or as of today, we're at 85% compliance with respect to rent registrations for the 23-24 fiscal year, and collected $1,039,765 in fees and penalties, and have registered 6,081 units for 23-24. But I should note that we are also in our current registration period. Registration is due every July, and we have collected over $300,000 in fees and penalties so far. Lastly, we are looking to renew our contracts for this year, again with BAE Urban Economics, BedZedek, Legal Services, HDL, as well as Tripeppy and Smith. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. And just to make sure I heard you correctly, the staff report, it's over $1 million in fees and penalties for 85%.
That's correct. We collected over $1 million in fees and penalties.
Okay, got it. All right, thank you so much. Do we have public comments on this item?
Yes, we have one speaker, Melissa Sanders. Melissa, you've been
Sorry.
unmuted. Go ahead.
Hi again. This may be not the correct place to actually ask this question, but one of the other meetings recently, there was a utilities thing that came up with rent control, and I could not find the information that I really wanted to, and I was confused as to why, even under rent control, that any increase in public utilities or, out of control of the landlords would not be an exclusion for, increasing the rent. So I just kind of wanted to kind of get a better understanding of that. And if there's some place you guys could point me to kind of read through that, obviously I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Barnes or Ms. Lewis, is anyone able to follow up with Ms. Sanders regarding her inquiry?
Yes, we can follow up with her. We can get her contact information and touch base.
Wonderful. Thank you. Were there any other comments? Okay. Thank you for that brief staff report for your work. C5.
Would you like a brief staff report?
Yes, please.
Oh, yes. Did I sign up for that one?
Let's make sure everybody's muted.
Recent campaign-related public comments and subsequent questions from the public about the appropriateness of such comments prompted a reexamination of the city's past practice of disallowing campaign activity in the council chambers. The council considered this matter at its May 28th meeting and unanimously directed the city attorney to return with a city council policy prohibiting campaign activity during public meetings of the council and the CBCs. The proposed policy defines campaign activity to mean advocating for or against a candidate or measure in any national, state, or local election. The policy excludes the following from the definition of campaign activity. It excludes comments on a specific agenda item to discuss and consider whether to place a measure on a municipal election ballot, an ordinance in response to a valid citizen initiative measure, or whether the city will take a position on national and state measures. And secondly, it excludes from the definition of campaign activity comments occurring during the joint public comment items not on the agenda period or the member request to agendize future items period relating to all of the foregoing that I just mentioned. And that concludes my staff report, and I'm available to take any questions.
Thank you. Were there any public comments on this item?
Yes, we have one speaker, Melissa Sanders. You've been
Sorry.
unmuted. Go ahead.
I really do feel that it's important for this city to not be involved in any kind of political things, especially in the meetings, but anytime a representative or anybody from City Hall, sitting on the dais would be at a city-sponsored event, I think that should be a neutral space, period. And that's just, so it should, in my opinion, be extended to beyond that. So if you're going as the council member or the mayor, then you should not be wearing buttons or pins or anything like that. You're there to represent the entire city and not one specific candidate, not one specific anything. So that's my opinion only. That's how I feel, but it should definitely be kept out of chambers. Thank you.
Thank you. That was our final speaker.
All right. C11, can we have a brief staff report?
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Honorable Council Members. Captain Andrew Belante. Besides me is Assistant Chief Troy Dunlap. Tonight we are here to seek approval for an application for a $200,000 grant through the Bureau of Justice Assistance for body-worn cameras. This grant requires a $200,000 matching contribution from the city. Last year, the Culver City Police Department was awarded the same grant. And these grant funds, we intend to use them to mitigate costs associated with our current and future body-worn camera program. Myself and Assistant Chief Dunlap are here to answer any questions related to the grant and/or our body-worn camera program.
Thank you. Did we have any public comments on this one?
Yes, we have one speaker.
Okay.
Melissa Sanders, you've been unmuted. Go ahead.
Sorry, I assumed this would be more of a, not just me tonight. I just wanted to make sure that those of you on the dais that I know anything to do with police, unfortunately, you tend just to say no. This is a grant, and if anything, if you're concerned about police not doing what they're supposed to be doing, this should be a quick, absolutely, we'd like improvements on body-worn cameras and make sure that we can see anything and have transparency. So I'm really hoping that this is supported as another preventative and a way for us to all make sure that our police are doing exactly what we are expecting them to do, and that there's no pushback. This is not even out of our own pocket. Thank you.
Thank you. That was our final speaker.
Thanks. I know Councilmember Vera brought this, so have
Thank
any
you.
comments?
Thank you, Assistant Chief, Captain. I really appreciate the brief presentation. Just a couple of comments and then questions at you. One, I do truly hope that we can get consensus on the dais on this one. I think it's a tool that really, as we discuss policing, we want a transparent, accountable police department. I think this tool provides that, so it's not a he said, she said sort of scenario. We want to make sure that we have officers that are conducting themselves properly, and if there is a complaint, we can go back to the video and view it ourselves and get rid of those bad actors if we do have them. Just a couple of questions. I know there was some talk on data in terms of reduction in use of force or whatnot. Do we have any of that data available, or have you guys been able to gather?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Vera. So I'm proud to say that this year we've seen an approximate 35% reduction in use of force incidents from last year. I attribute this to a lot of things. One, due to improved policies, as well as a sharp focus on our training. Last year, our department invested over 3,000 total hours of training, which included de-escalation training, crisis negotiation training, critical incident training, mental health training, as well as procedural justice and implicit bias training. In addition to that, we have an arrest and control team that provides additional training to our officers. They review use of force policies and best practices in the field. We've recently implemented our crisis negotiation team, which has been a huge asset to our department in responding to persons in crisis, and they've been able to successfully de-escalate situations and avoid a use of force. But in regards to the body-worn cameras, I believe that it does have a role in use of forces. We have a very robust use of force review process, and that starts with the field sergeant in the field. When we have a use of force incident, our field sergeant goes, they interview all witnesses on the body-worn cameras, they interview the suspect on the body-worn cameras. Additionally, they search and canvass the area for any third-party video surveillance. From there, they write a preliminary use of force investigation report. That report is forwarded to the lieutenant for approval, and then finally to me, the Operations Bureau Commander. And the most valuable piece of evidence in that use of force review is the body-worn camera footage. It provides an unbiased account of what happened from the second they contacted this individual to the conclusion of the incident. So we review everything with a critical eye when reviewing this stuff. And that we look at all the tactics that led up to the use of force, and we evaluate it from there. If there's any kind of training that needs to be sought, we work in conjunction with our arrest and control team. If there's any violations of policy or the law, that could be forwarded to our professional standards unit for an internal investigation.
Great, thank you. It sounds like it's a very resourceful tool in terms of really collecting the data and going back and checks and balances, so to speak. One other question, I know there's been talk in terms of how this technology is used and the policies behind it. And I think along with all the technology that the police department is using, there is robust policy behind each and every one of them. But in terms of like policy, and I don't know what the stance on this is with the ACLU. Do you have any data in terms of, I don't even know if you guys had contacted or looked into that and how their view is on the body-worn cameras?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I don't have any data associated with the ACLU. However, in reviewing their website, they do say that police body-worn cameras have the potential to serve as a much-needed police oversight tool, and I agree with that. The ACLU recommends that it's critical for police departments to have good policies, robust policies. I'm proud to say when we implemented our body-worn camera program in 2017, that was a huge focus of ours, making sure that we had a thorough and robust policy. Our body-worn camera policy is 10 pages in length. It outlines the body-worn camera's intended use, the employee responsibilities related to body-worn cameras, when the activation of the cameras are required, the supervisor responsibilities related to reviewing body-worn camera footage, when body-worn camera footage can legally be released to members of the public, data storage, the length of time body-worn camera footage can be retained, and lastly, the training requirements related to body-worn camera footage. In addition to that, we have a sergeant who's assigned full-time to review body-worn camera footage. Any body-worn camera footage that we send to the district attorney's office for criminal prosecution is reviewed, and also for public records requests as well.
So there are, in terms of releasing videos to the public, there are guidelines in terms of when we can and cannot release the video, correct?
That is correct, sir.
All right, that's it. Thank you very much, Assistant Chief and Captain. I really appreciate your presentation. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Erickson?
I don't think I requested to speak, so I have nothing.
Councilmember Erickson, I'm going to continue to just, as I normally do, just go to everyone. So just in case you have something to say, you have an opportunity. Councilmember Puza.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the brief report and for those questions by my colleague. I think I'm just going to take a hard left and then come back. But I think many people in our city think public safety is many things. Some people have a different relationship to public safety, to policing. Some people think it's everything. And so we recently had an opportunity to do something really unique and have a citywide conversation about public safety and have include something that's never been done. And include an element in our general plan, but that was scrapped. And I think it's, maybe better to do it when we're not in a crisis, because there's no doubt that there's underlying tension, especially with marginalized communities, and it's important to address the issue directly. And I think the element can inform conversations like this, so they're not one-offs. And we shouldn't be afraid to have conversations like this. But I appreciate the information about the use of force, because that was one of my questions. So I also looked at the National Institute of Justice, and they conducted several studies on the effectiveness of body-worn cameras. And a lot of the research doesn't necessarily support the effectiveness of those in achieving the outcomes. They did, research that showed no consistent or no statistically significant effects, and there were no effects rating for use of force, assaults on officers, officer-initiated calls for service arrests, traffic stops, and tickets, and field interviews, i.e. stop and frisk. It doesn't mean they don't have value. There were some promising results. There's some no effects, some promising, and some negative. Is there any data that we could have? You have use of force. Is there on those other categories? Is there the possibility to have those? Because this is going to come back, the contract. Would we be able to have that kind of data, and we'd be able to look at that?
Thank you for the question. Yes, we can look into that and see if we can bring back some data on that.
Okay. Those are my questions for right now. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Vice Mayor Brown.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say. 35% reduction in use of force year over year. I can't imagine there's a way to directly tie it to one single thing. It's very holistic, as you mentioned. I imagine training, body-worn cameras, all the things that we're doing in progressive policing. Curious if you agree.
Yes, I do agree. There's a lot of factors related to use of force, indeed.
Yeah, I know that these were more. President Obama issued either something from the from where I read it was like $253 million to agencies to buy body-worn cameras, and was it a mandate for agencies to do that, or what happened back in 2015, 2016?
Yes, Vice Mayor. So what you're referring to is President Obama's Task Force on 21st Century Policing report, and there were 6 pillars he addressed it, and one of those pillars they talk a lot about is accountability and transparency measures. And within that pillar, accountability and transparency, the recommendation is for law enforcement agencies to implement body-worn camera programs. And as I stated earlier, we implemented ours in 2017, partially in response to that report. And we were one of the first police departments in the region to implement a body-worn camera program. And there's a lot of benefits associated with body-worn cameras that are highlighted in that report. Increased accountability and transparency for officers to ensure that they're acting within the law and policy. Also, body-worn camera video evidence captures an entire incident and provides an unbiased account which protects both the officer and citizens from false accusations or claims of misconduct. Body-worn camera footage is often used as a training tool to enhance overall department performance. And this is something we always see. Body-worn cameras can be used to capture video evidence for criminal prosecutions. That video, anytime we have an arrest, is requested by our district attorney's office. And that's an added layer of accountability and transparency. The DA reviews our body-worn camera footage to ensure that our officers are acting within the law. Was the reason for the stop or detention justified? Was the search justified? Was the arrest within the law? So that's an added accountability and transparency measure. And then, as I touched on before, the body-worn cameras, in my opinion, are the most important tool to investigate use of force incidents, critical incidents, vehicle pursuits, which we see often, and citizen complaints. The body-worn camera provides an unbiased account of that encounter, and it could either exonerate or sustain an officer from allegations of misconduct.
Thank you for that, and I appreciate you pointing out that CCPD was one of the first adopters of the program. I know even with the tracking of RIPA data, another transparency tool, we were, maybe you can say what it is, but I know we were one of the first adopters in the state of California, right? In Southern California, certainly.
Yes, the Assembly Bill 953, the Racial Identity Profiling Act, known as RIPA. We weren't legally required to collect that data and report it to the DOJ. until April of 2023, I believe. However, in the spirit of accountability and transparency, we began collecting and reporting that data early to the DOJ in early of 2020, so 3 years before we were legally required to do so.
Thank you for that, Kat.
Thank you so much for the presentation and for your answering of the questions. I just have 3 quick things that I think would be helpful and to just respond to some of the comments that have been made this evening on this item. Just to kind of lift up, because I have been on the ACLU's website as it pertains to many issues, but in this particular issue, I think it's important to read the full sentence, although I do appreciate our staff lifting up the first portion. So I just want to read from the ACLU issue, privacy technology, surveillance technologies, police body cameras. If you type in ACLU police body cameras, I'm sure it will come up. It says, police body cameras have the potential to serve as a much-needed police oversight tool at the time of a growing recognition that the United States has a real problem with police violence. But if the technology is to be effective at providing oversight, reducing police abuses, and increasing community trust, it is vital that they be deployed with good policies to ensure they accomplish these goals. Without good policies, they risk becoming just another police surveillance device and one with real potential to invade privacy. Especially important are the policies governing when the cameras are turned on and who has access to the footage and under what conditions. So I just wanted to provide that additional context to the ACLU comment or I guess vote of confidence there. I also wanted to lift up the and I think Councilmember Puza referenced the National Institute of Justice, but just to lift up, and they have an article that is on the research on body-worn cameras and law enforcement. So out of all of the police departments that have adopted, they said about 80% folks that have acquired body-worn cameras, and the intention was to improve officer safety, to increase evidence quality, reduce civilian complaints, and reduce agency liability. But the research does not necessarily support the effectiveness of body-worn cameras in achieving those desired outcomes. A comprehensive review of 70 studies of body-worn cameras use found that the larger body of research on body-worn cameras showed no consistent or no statistically significant effects. And they talk more about the resources on that, but again, that's at the nij.ojp.gov website if neighbors are curious about that source. And to our Police Chief Sims' credit, he did respond to some of my concerns. I think the email was probably from early June as it pertained to use of force. And while I appreciate the verbal indication that this year use of force is down, and the data that Police Chief Sims sent to me last month, based on the data that I was shared by our chief from 2019, we had 139 uses of force. 2020, 108 probably due to the pandemic. 2021, we're back up to 121. 2022, down to 101. And last year was 149. And I will note that last year was the highest year for police violence in the nation. So I'm happy to hear that it looks like we might be trending down as it pertains to the data for the first 2 quarters of the year. I guess that's what that 35% reduction is indicating, or I don't know how the data was utilized to indicate that. But I will just say, and I am really appreciative of the department's commitment to RIPA data and capturing that information. I'm more interested in how we are actually getting uses of forces down and how we are working to have less uses of force on folks of color in Culver City. And I'm very interested in how we do that since we've had pearls have fallen, since we've had the RIPA data since 2019, since we've had body-worn cameras since 2017. I don't know, I appreciate you mentioning the trainings that have taken place. I don't know if any of those trainings are new, because it's my understanding there've been a lot of trainings since I've been on the council, so I don't know if there've been any new trainings. So just wanted to provide that sort of as a context based on how I am reading this. Is there anything that I am getting wrong based on the data? I don't know if you all have the data that Chief Sims sent to me last month, or if that's public data, but just sort of wanted to pause for any response.
We don't have the data that you're referring to, but on our website, we do have our transparency report that outlines all our use of forces. And I would say out of that data, we're talking about 44,000 calls for service. So all that is broken down on our website. So if that's something that the public wants to look into, it's on our website.
Yes, the number of calls is listed here. I don't know if that directly responded to my question, but I do appreciate your response. Do we have a indication on the overall cost of the camera? I'm aware that the grant is $200,000, but do we know what the overall cost of this program is?
So Mayor, we're going to be coming forward to council in the near future with a proposal for body-worn cameras. We did a year-long pilot program. We tested 3 different cameras. We're still analyzing them, but we're going to be coming forward to council in the near future with that.
So do we have any information on how expensive those programs are, either the pilots or any proposals that are coming before us?
Yeah, the only one I'm familiar with, the price is Axon. And for a 10-year contract with Axon, it is $4.9 million or $490,000 a year.
So like, would this be every year you would be applying for this to offset that over the next 10 years, or?
Yes, absolutely. As I stated before, last year we were awarded this grant. We would like approval to apply for this grant. Hopefully it would be awarded to us to help mitigate those costs, and any kind of grant opportunities that come our way, we're constantly seeking those out and applying for them to help mitigate these costs to be fiscally responsible.
Okay. And do you know if there's been any trainings this year that haven't been done in the prior year? Are you aware of any trainings?
I'm not at the moment, but we have pretty consistent training in terms of our de-escalation, crisis negotiation, critical incident training, mental health training, which is pretty consistent throughout the years.
Thank you. And just to be clear, this year we're saying, and I don't have the data for this year, but the assertion is use of force is down this year by 35%, but we don't know what the numbers are on that just yet for the first, I guess, the first 6 months of the year.
Yes, so that's all going to be put on our transparency report that we hope to put on our website in the next month. But looking at the data through the first 6 months of the year, we've had 55 use of force incidents.
Okay. And we normally have between 100 and 150, it looks like, between 2019 and 2023. So we're trending lower at the end of the year, or in the midpoint. Okay. And the transparency document, is that the quarterly report, or is this a new report?
That is the quarterly report, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you for taking the time to answer those questions. Sure.
Thanks for all that. I just wanted to follow up with the mayor's question about the grant. Is that does that typically come up every year? And I know we received it last year.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. That's all. Thanks, Mayor.
Mayor, can I have a question, please?
Councilmember Vera.
Just want to ask a question in terms of ACLU. I too read the entire paragraph, and that was sort of my reasoning behind asking about the policy. My understanding is that we do have robust policies in terms of when and where and how, correct?
Yes, a very robust policy. I would say our policy is probably one of the most robust in the nation that I've seen. As I stated before, 10 pages in length, and it outlines in detail everything associated with our body-worn camera program. As I stated before, the intended use, the responsibilities related to body-worn cameras, when the activation of a body-worn camera is required, supervisor responsibilities, how long we retain that data, when the body-worn camera could be legally released, training associated with that, and additionally, in our policy, it's not in the body-worn camera policy, but it's at the use of force policy, the use of force review that I touched on earlier. That very robust supervisory review that starts with the sergeant, goes to the lieutenant, and comes to me for final approval. So you have 3 layers of transparency looking at this. And we look at it with a very critical eye because anytime we use force, it's extremely serious, and we want to make sure that we're abiding by policy and the law.
Okay. And then last question, Mayor. Do you have any indication of how many, say, agencies in the South Bay that do not have body-worn cameras?
As far as I know, all agencies in the South Bay have body-worn cameras. The only agency that I believe does not is Inglewood PD. However, every other law enforcement agency that I know in LA County, Orange County, Riverside County, and San Bernardino County has body-worn cameras that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, and that brought up something for me. I just was looking for the 10-page robust policy. I can't find it. It's not Googleable. I do have a link to the overall policy manual. Do you think that's something that the police department, and the policy manual is almost 900 pages, which isn't really accessible to the public? It is, but it's not always very easy to traverse almost 900 pages of policy. Do you think the body-worn camera policy could be accessible or easily accessible on the CCPD website?
Yes, Mayor. We do have our policy manual on our department website. And just for reference, our mobile and body audio video system policy, it's a policy 436, and it's pages 430 to 440 in our policy manual. I'll be more than happy to email you a copy if you'd like, but you could access it on our department website.
I can see the manual here. I see that it's page 430. But this is the best we can do in terms of making it available to the public with ease. Because even right now, it looks like there's not interest in pulling that out for ease. So if folks are interested, you can Google that and access the almost 900-page document, and I guess do a Control F. So just so folks know where it is, but you will have to kind of look for it. All right. Thank you so much. Do we have any other items to be pulled from this list? I've lost track. Did we do C6? Can we do C6? I'm sorry, I had that written here, and thank you for your time.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. Did you want a brief report?
Yes, please.
Okay. Ted Stevens, Director of Parks, Recreation, Community Services. I'm here with a recommendation to the City Council to adopt a resolution granting an alcohol use permit to the Culver City Exchange Club to conduct a beer and wine garden in Veterans Memorial Park during the 2024 Fiesta La Bayona. Culver City Exchange Club is a local nonprofit organization that is dedicated to providing financial support to various community-based organizations. Culver City Municipal Code grants the City Council authority to issue a permit for a beer and wine garden at the city's Fiesta La Bayona. The Beer and Wine Garden has been a part of Fiesta La Bayona since 2005. The Exchange Club has been the permittee for the Beer and Wine Garden since 2007. The only exception was 2020 when there was a virtual fiesta due to the coronavirus. The fiesta will be held this year on Friday, August 23rd, Saturday, August 24th, and Sunday, August 25th. The Exchange Club desires to sponsor the Beer and Wine Garden for the Fiesta 2024 and has agreed to comply with all the conditions imposed in the proposed 2024 resolution. And I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. I think this was just an item for me. I don't think there was a comment on this one, but I've asked this question before in terms of, and thank you for that brief report, in terms of how, just in terms of equity and opportunity for other local nonprofits to potentially have the opportunity to, raise money and participate in this sort of flagship kind of location and space for our annual event. It's my understanding it's typically always the Exchange Club. And I mean, I guess that's fine, but we do have a host of nonprofits in our community that may or might not have an interest in supporting or participating in Fiesta in this way, but it seems like we're very resistant to having a process for this, or is there a process that I don't know of? I think I have to look back at my notes, but I remember, I think the city manager saying it's up to the city to determine how this is done, or city policy, but I'd have to go back and look, but it just seems a little unfair that one group has the opportunity to participate in this capacity in Fiesta annually that isn't granted to any other nonprofit. I don't know if there's like an official answer, and I'll try to search my notes real quick to recall what was said.
I do have a staff report from item C12 from June 12th of 2023.
Oh, wonderful. Let's see.
And in the criteria, there's a paragraph in here that says criteria for entertainers, the organizer of the Beer and Wine Garden, and food vendors were also considered by the subcommittee. It was acknowledged that the systems in place used in the previous years have worked for these specific vendors, and same systems should continue to be used without change moving forward. And so while we have never, I don't know that there was, I don't know what competitive process was done in the past, if any, but just based on this, we just continue to use the vendor that we have. They followed all of the rules and have consistently followed all the rules, which they are a lot, and they are very significant. A Beer and Wine Garden is a very serious part. There's a lot of legal requirements, security, insurance, safety, a lot of rules, requires a lot of volunteers. All of the money that they create, and there is an attached report, but all the money that they generate is donated to local nonprofits and groups and organizations, which I think that's detailed in one of the attachments.
Screen is not working with me right now. I appreciate that. I just wish we had more of a process that allowed it to be available to other groups if folks wanted that opportunity. But I appreciate you outlining the rules and requirements, and I'm happy to hear that they've been in compliance. This is, I know we don't have a committee any longer, so perhaps this is just a conversation with staff in terms of who participates, but just the more opportunity that we have for, folks to have an opportunity to participate, I think should be the goal that we're aiming for. And if there's a series of points or a series of vetting that allows for one group to get it continually, great, then that means there's a fair process. But like the gut check doesn't really pass that every year. It just goes to the same group just because of tradition or because over a period of years they've learned the process. I'm sure other groups might have that opportunity to learn the process if they had that opportunity. So it's just something that I think is just a smidge inequitable in our processes, but I appreciate you lifting it up and and sharing that for community members. All right. So did I miss any comments from anyone or any community comments?
No, I think we're good.
Nothing from clerk? Great. Oh, yes.
Just wondering for that, could there be like 2 bars in the wine garden area? Or is that just going to make things too complicated?
I think that could definitely make it complicated and
Okay.
potentially.
Thank you.
And just one thing to add, I'm not aware of any other group in the city that's expressed interest in this. Have we had any?
And talking to my staff, no, no one directly like reached out to us, email or like called us and requested
Has
that.
there been a call for it or?
Not that I'm aware, nothing official.
It's well known in the community.
But you can,
But no one ever reaches out and asks us if, we've had no one express any interest in this. I mean, just so the council's aware.
but it's well known that you can apply to be an organization in the wine garden?
I don't think that's well known.
We're always willing to listen to anyone in the community, express interest in anything any city activity. I'm just sharing that we haven't had any interest expressed by any other group.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I don't know if that's known that they could do it, is the only thing that I'm saying. I hear you. I just don't know if it's well known. Be very open to if they've received it. I'm not saying that staff would not be open to that at all. I just don't know if people know that that's an option. 100% believe that.
And so one last thing on this piece, I think this might also be just a function of taking a peek at how we do things, how we do outreach. I don't know if there are many barriers in place for folks to feel comfortable reaching out to staff, city council. Some people feel very comfortable, and I'm very glad for those folks, and we're happy to hear from them and keep it coming. But not everyone has that kind of level of courage or whatever we want to call it to, some people just probably assume, oh, well, it will go to the Exchange Club because that's where it goes every year. So I think we might, if we're taking the stance that it's open to anyone, all people have to do is ask, we might want to, if we're serious about that, we might want to do, actually advertise that so people are aware. For example, they do the nonprofit awards or whatever every year. So if there was an opportunity or an announcement made at a convening of all the Culver City nonprofits that this is accessible to them, and then we don't hear anything, then that makes sense. But if there's been no awareness and every year it goes to the same organization, I don't know if that's the same thing as, no one ever reached out. Those are 2 different things. So I just want to be careful about, just because we don't hear anything doesn't mean that folks are not interested. It just means we haven't created the avenues for folks to participate meaningfully in that way. But I do appreciate that feedback, and hopefully moving forward, since it's just a process of not hearing from folks, maybe this conversation will lead folks to be curious and or have an inquiry. And just for the record, what would that process be to reach out to you, Director Stevens, or how would folks formally express interest to doing something like this?
Mayor, anyone can contact my office or Director Stevens.
Wonderful. Okay, thanks for placing that on the record.
Okay.
Sure, Vice Mayor.
So thanks for all the feedback. And reading through this, I think I can't say assuredly, but having been here, a resident since 2000, and I can't remember what year it was. I remember rolling my infant children to Vets Park for Fiesta when they were, probably 2002. It was a merry-go-round and a petting zoo and a bunch of booths. That's all it was. And there was a vast stretch of grass open in the middle. And I think, I'm not saying that it doesn't mean that we can't be open to someone else taking this on, but when, I'm guessing the Exchange Club came to the Fiesta La Bayona Committee, which at that time was not a city, official city group. It wasn't run by the city, it was run by this organization, Fiesta La Bayona, and they said, hey, we'd like to do this thing. And it was probably, I can't recall, but it was probably a very small production, putting on this beer and wine garden. And so they were able to kind of each year, trial and error, grow, figure out what's working, what's not working, and expand with what it's become. And all of us who've been there, it's a big, like a bar. It's a big deal. And again, with stringent requirements, because we're talking about alcohol, ABC and all the stuff that you got to do with security and, and they've, that club's got a lot of members, so they have the number of volunteers it requires to manage the front and the bar and all that. There's a lot to it. So if, anyone who's listening, who might be interested in this, I think the requirements are, the bar's got to be really high. Do you have the people? Do you have the insurance? Do you have do you have the ability to get the licensing? Because if this ball is dropped after we hand it off to a new applicant and then we don't have the beer and wine garden, one, there's going to be a lot of disappointed residents, but two, there's, 3 or 4 organizations that, receive $10,000 each that won't get it. So, yeah, let's be open, but really high bar to fulfill that, because people are drinking alcohol, and things can happen when that happens. Thanks, Mayor.
For sure. Thanks for lifting that up. Hopefully, procedures and protocols across systems are being written down for succession planning and just overall awareness and transparency across roles and opportunities across events. So there's some institutional knowledge there. But thank you. All right. I know that I would like to take C11 separately and just in the Director Stevens, are you able to put, maybe not this year, but in next year, as y'all do outreach, can you put some language in the outreach to vendors and whoever, that if folks have questions, that they can reach out to the city manager or you for inquiries? Is that something that could be included in the outreach language for next year?
Yeah, I think I would be open to that. This year would be really short notice.
Yeah,
I don't
this
think
year.
we're gonna do it, but yeah, next year I can make that adjustment.
Wonderful. I really appreciate that. Okay, can we take C11, and thank you for your time. Can we take C11 separately? Is there any other item that folks want to take separately out of consent? All right, can we have a motion for all consent items other than C11? So 1 through 10 and 12 through 15.
I have a motion by Vice Mayor O'Brien, a second by Councilmember Vera, and that's to improve all items except for C11. And we'll do a roll call vote. How do you vote? Councilmember Vera?
Aye.
Councilmember Puza?
Aye.
Councilmember Erickson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor O'Brien?
Aye.
Mayor McMorrin?
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously.
Can we do C11?
We have a motion by Councilmember Vera, a second by Vice Mayor O'Brien, to approve item C11. How do you vote, Councilmember Vera?
Aye.
Councilmember Puza?
Abstain?
Councilmember Erickson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor O'Brien,
Aye.
Mayor McMorrin.
Abstain.
That motion passes, 3 ayes, 2 abstain from Mayor McMorrin and Councilmember Puzo.
All right, thank you so much. We're moving on to our action items. Action item 1, adoption of an ordinance approving city-initiated zoning code amendments, amending various sections in the public right-of-way with definitions. If desired, authorization to release a request for proposals, direction to the city manager is deemed appropriate. Can we have a staff report?
Yes, good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm Elaine Garrity-Warner, the city's Economic Development Director. This evening, myself and Assistant City Attorney Christina Burrows, at the Council's request, are presenting 2 items. The first is a potential adoption of a city-initiated zoning code amendment to allow for digital kiosks in the public right-of-way for the purpose of providing public information and other messaging selected by the city, including commercial advertising. The second is a draft request for proposal for an interactive digital kiosk program. I'd like to provide some background regarding these items for the public interest before we begin our presentation. Next slide. In November 2021, the City Council directed staff to release a request for information relative to the inclusion of kiosks in strategic locations throughout the city. The purpose of the RFI was to understand the value of providing real-time interactive information such as transportation services, city meetings, special events, facilities, classes, local business information, weather, and emergency updates. 4 firms responded, with 2 providing prototypes suitable for an outdoor environment. In April 2023, the Economic Development Subcommittee reviewed the 2 feasible RFI responses and directed staff to invite both firms to present their prototypes to the community. 2 community meetings were held in August 2023 with a working prototype provided by one of the respondents. The other vendor was unable to attend, but information about their unit was made available. In October 2023, staff presented an overview of the community feedback to the Economic Development Subcommittee and later to the full council and requested further direction. At that time, the City Council directed staff to pursue an amendment to the sign ordinance to allow for a digital kiosk program. The city attorney worked with a consultant to prepare a draft amendment and brought it to the Planning Commission in April 2024 for their consideration. The Planning Commission recommended that the City Council deny the amendment based on the unknown impacts, quantity, and siting of the kiosks. In June 2024, the City Council introduced a proposed zoning code amendment which would permit digital kiosks in the public right-of-way. Today, you are asked to consider adopting the proposed amendment and provide authorization and/or direction on the release of a request for proposal. And with that, I'd like to allow Christina to discuss the specifics of the amendment. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Elaine. On June 10th, the City Council moved to introduce the zoning code amendment with an added restriction, that the screens on each side of the kiosk would be no more than 15 square feet in size. The ordinance that is before you tonight for adoption has been updated to correct a Scribner's error and reflects the City Council motion from June 10th. The ordinance allows wayfinding kiosks on public property pursuant to an agreement with the city. Thank you, Elaine.
Thanks, Christina. Next slide. In regard to the potential RFP, we anticipate the process to take, in the very best case, approximately 2 months from the release of the RFP to proposal presentation to the City Council, potentially by October 2024. This approach provides interested vendors approximately 4 weeks to prepare the proposal, a few weeks for staff review and interviews, and review and preparation of a summary report by the city's fiscal consultant of all of the proposals that for the City Council's consideration. We've included a detailed scope of work that we are requesting vendors to respond to relative to the following categories. Next slide. Design. We are requesting the vendors provide an overview of the dimensions of the kiosk design and installation footprint, including the size of the digital interface screen, which may not exceed 15 square feet pursuant to the proposed Culver City Municipal Code Section 17.330.015 as amended and presented to you this evening. Siting plan. We are requesting information on a siting plan that maximizes community benefits, including installations near transit hubs, high-frequency areas, tourism destinations, community spaces, parks, and business districts, which also excludes residential areas, that does not conflict with pedestrian or roadway safety. We want to know what the minimum units require to implement a program in the city, as well as the proposed process to work with the city and the community to identify mutually agreeable locations. Next slide. In regard to infrastructure, we're asking for technical specifications relative to power, connectivity, and energy efficiency technologies. It's important to note that connecting to the city's fiber and electrical will require trenching, which has not been included in this year's fiscal budget. These costs would be borne by a potential vendor, however, may ultimately be supported by any future revenues that the city could collect. Next slide. Installation. We're requesting an overview of the installation process and timeline relative to the electrical, fiber, and cellular connection and other requirements for placement in the public right-of-way, including necessary foundations and conflicts with underground utilities. In operation, we're also requesting information relative to the kiosk operational capacity, software, hardware, and the useful life of kiosks, as well as information on technical upgrades and other innovations that may be required during the kiosk's life cycle. We'd like to understand what the dimming or shielding capabilities of kiosks are when not used during the evening and nighttime hours. We also want to understand what, if any, data and behavior statistics are collected during active and passive usage of the kiosks, and how this data is maintained and utilized, including any data monetization. Next slide. In regard to maintenance, we're requesting a maintenance plan with expected response times for both non-functioning and damaged kiosks. We'd like confirmation that the city will have access to a dashboard to assess the health of a kiosk in real time. Next slide. In regard to content and uses, we're requesting an overview of all available uses of the kiosk, including inclusion of community-driven content, location-aware directory listings, emergency services, and the process to promote city content, such as documents, web links, maps, images, and other information available for the community. We've noted in the RFP that the city does not permit audio other than what is required for accessibility purposes or video components. For accessibility, we are requesting detail on how each kiosk will be compliant with the Americans for Disability Act to include height, visual impairment, and other accessibility features. In regard to advertising, we are requesting a proposed advertising strategy and how advertising components, slides will be displayed both during active and passive/default mode. Next slide. We'd like the proposal to include local and affordable advertising opportunities to small businesses, a minimum percentage of advertising space available for the city to display information for its purposes, and a plan to ensure advertising content complies with the city's advertising policies, and the process for the city to review and remove content it deems non-compliant. Next slide. Some of those advertising content regulations are below. They include adult-related products and services, political campaign speech, false, misleading, or deceptive advertising, sexual or excretory subject matter, copyright or trademark violations, illegal activity, profanity or violence, advertising or displays which condone discrimination based upon race, religion, creed, ethnicity, national origin, age, socioeconomic status, disability, gender, or sexual orientation, anything that is harmful or disruptive to the public use of public sidewalks, unsafe behavior, demeaning or disparaging, and lights, noise, and special effects. We are also requesting a detailed revenue and projection/cost revenue information, as well as successful case studies of previous installations for a minimum of 2 years. Next slide, please. In terms of assessment, it's recommended that the city's fiscal consultant, working with city staff, review all proposals for responsiveness to the RFP scope of work related to community benefits, technical experience, maintenance approach, relevant projects, advertising strategy, and revenue sharing. The consultant will provide an assessment of each proposal for the City Council's consideration. The proposals will include a comparison to other relevant programs detailing term, deal points, and revenue sharing so that the City Council can compare the proposed program it receives to other relevant installations. Interviews with each proposer would be conducted to clarify their response and approach. All of the proposal terms and financial offers would be presented to the City Council for consideration, and if desired, the City Council may consider making a final award selection based on the unique program proposals received. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments?
I have about 5 speakers signed up.
Okay.
Our first speaker, I'm going to actually go ahead and call all the names. Barbara Broyd, Daryl Minthy, Melissa Sanders, Marcy Bond, and Nancy Barba. Our first speaker is Barbara Broyd. Barbara, you've been
Good
unmuted.
evening. Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and honorable members of the council. My name is Barbara Brady, and I am the co-president of the Coalition for Beautiful Los Angeles. We were established in 1986 and are a nonprofit organization dedicated to preserving, protecting, and enhancing the scenic beauty and visual character of Southern California. We do this through education, outreach, and advocacy. I'm here this evening because I live not far from Culver City, and I know it to be a beautiful city. It is well tended, the trees are trimmed, the sidewalks are wide and walkable. And for those reasons and many others, I cannot understand and I'm very perplexed at how Culver City could be considering renting out their public right-of-way, their sidewalks, for commercial advertising. I understand there's a financial tug and a pull, but there can be no other identifiable public benefit that justifies the taking over of our sidewalks with commercial messaging that no one can turn off. This is presented as an informational kiosk program, but it is in its roots an advertising program that will be proposed by advertising out-of-home advertising companies to place kiosks on the city's right-of-way. And as the city densifies and as more and more buildings and people come into the city, that public space is more and more valuable. We want our pedestrians to be able to run. We want people to be able to stroll. And when you walk past a digital kiosk with its rotating ads, you can't turn them off. In fact, they will always be rotating except when an individual comes up to quote unquote interact with it. And let's face it, if this is for tourists, they carry cell phones these days. People have ways to find information, and Culver City has done a great job with transit shelters with very inobtrusive poles that have digital scrolling small messages that give transit riders all the information they need to know about coming buses and wait times. These are ad structures, and there's a tremendous issue about digital changing messages and driver distraction. It's not just the fact that these messages can be seen as someone drives by, but studies have shown that the anticipation of a changing message is what keeps the driver's eyes on these signs, and that spells trouble. Driver distraction is one of the leading causes of accidents on our streets, and we know that in this county we have a tremendous problem with driver distraction and dangers to pedestrians and bicyclists who are our most vulnerable roadway users. This program will also raise questions related to the protection of privacy. These digital billboards on a sidewalk, basically, are collecting data from all those people who pass without the opportunity to opt out. This is contrary to the California state constitution that guarantees our right to privacy. That data is
Ms.
sold.
Broyd, your
One of
time
your
is up. Thank you so much.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Daryl Minthy.
I realize it's a losing battle, but I only have one L in my first name. But there's so many ways to spell Daryl. You know, I could talk about these kiosks for about an hour and more. My family has heard all of that, so fortunately I get 2 minutes. I just want to talk about one thing that's sort of important to me. I run the Downtown Business Association here, and one of the challenges we have is communicating about public events. There is real value to what is called small format, poster-sized advertising of this kind, in addition to social media promotion. It's quite useful for getting event messages out. Many people, including me, wish we had on Town Plaza some way to say, oh, look, here's the calendar of events that are happening. You may have noticed there were sandwich boards out there for the summer concert series because there's like no other way to easily communicate that information. we could use another way to do that. Now, I understand that these kiosks don't merely do that. They also have commercial advertising. And it's my view, and I think that of many, that as long as it's reasonably balanced and not too obtrusive, these can be useful tools. Where there is concern in the downtown business community, and there is some, it's about that we don't have too many of these, and we don't end up with them in the wrong places. So I'm coming with a very specific ask for what I hope we'll see in these, which is we want to be at the table. As a downtown, we'd like to be at the table when the actual sites are selected. We know our downtown very well. I would ask the same of the Arts District that's not here tonight. They know their streets. They know every corner. They know, just like I do, every piece of concrete. We'd like to be part of this. If it is simply an internal discussion that takes place in a bureaucratic or subcommittee context, then a lot of information will be lost. And the biggest fear, the biggest concern that we have is not the advertising. You can go to London, Paris, all over, and you'll find this small format advertising everywhere telling you about the next festival. These things, that's not the real concern. The concern is where are these going to be exactly? And that's a process that I would like the Downtown Business Association, the Arts District Board to be part of. If that happens, I think that we'll end up with a project that really succeeds for giving this community that community benefit. But I think in order to get that community benefit, we've got to be at the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Melissa Sanders. Melissa, you've been unmuted. Go ahead.
Hi again. Obviously, this is a lot of controversy around it. I would say that considering our lovely city is going into deficit spending, any extra cash at the moment sounds like a great idea, and that this would be new, so it should be highly regulated. It would be great if we could maybe not make them all black. Maybe we can find some really cool wrap that we can use on the outside, maybe do a little art contest at the school or something, and do that, but put them in places that seem, logical. And I don't know what the requirements are. I am not a digital billboard, professional by any stretch of the imagination. But if there's all these things that are concerns like distracted drivers, if there's ways to angle things and take away some of those concerns, that's, something obviously I would assume what we'd be looking to do. But this would be great for some downtown things. We put those banners across the streets, but we can't put banners everywhere, and they can't say anything other than that one banner. So I think it would be a great opportunity to put them at parks and, other locations that would have people coming and getting to know, what's coming up. What is, I had a number of people actually Friday night ask me what was going on. They hadn't heard of it. This would be an example of if they ride through or bike through or drive through, hang out in Culver City, weeks before events, they'll find out about it. So I think this could be done in a really positive way. We just have to be thoughtful and respectful and look at how we as a city want to take on a new format and see how it can enhance, hopefully, and be only positive. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Marcy Bond.
Good evening again, Mayor and council members. I spoke in favor of this last time because I see the potential that this could have for our city, especially when it comes to, when I say advertising, promoting what our city has to offer as far as Parks and Rec, as far as our arts and in the parks programs and all of that. I see this as a huge potential, and I think it could also be helpful for our businesses, as well as using them for art. I did this past week go to one vendor. I am not promoting any one vendor. I just wanted to see what this would look like and how it could possibly be used in the city. They are touch screen. The vendor that I spoke to said, you know, they could even create apps for us. So if we wanted to have an app on there that was a Parks and Rec app or something else, people could touch the screen, then touch that app and find out what's going on. And I think that that could be invaluable to a lot of people, because I would say that sometimes the websites are not the friendliest ones to go and try to find things that are going on in our city. And I also feel like that when people are moving into our city, they're not always hooked in to what we have. And this would be a great way to hook them in. It would also be a great way to show the type of art that is happening from our schools and these types of programs that we have that make Culver City so unique, I would say, as far as so many other cities that are around the Southland. So I'm in favor of this. I agree that we need to have some strict rules in place, but I actually have a lot of faith in our city employees and our lawyers and our officials to see that this would happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Nancy Barba. Nancy, you've been unmuted. Go ahead.
Good evening. Thank you. Good evening, Council. I am speaking on this item because I continue to hear proponents support that the advertising revenue will be a boon for the city, that it will help with our deficit. I also hear that it would be great for community announcements and events announcements. But the issue is how much of the time that these kiosks are on, are those functionalities being used? The truth of the matter is the reason private companies are willing to pay the city to install these is that they are getting advertising revenue. In the city of Berkeley, they approved an agreement with one of these companies to deploy up to 31 of these kiosks, and they face a lot of opposition when they wanted to move beyond the pilot phase. Once the city is locked into a contract, it will be extremely challenging to exit that contract. The community at large does not want advertising in the public right away. We have very limited space for pedestrians, for wheelchairs, for all of the ways we can be using our limited public space. And for us to be inviting advertisement in a city that prides itself with not having billboards, it goes against the tradition that a lot of this community has grown to appreciate. Additionally, there is concerns about the tracking that can be done through these kiosks because they ping people's phones. So with criminalization of reproductive health care and other things going in other states, other things happening in other states, I have grave concerns that that tracking functionality is a concern. It is commonly known, there's plenty of literature that shows that the data on these kiosks is not openly shared. There's very limited transparency. If you try to go in and do research on what percent are they being used for, what percent of the time are they being used for wayfinding versus advertising versus community announcements, I can guarantee you will find nothing, because these kiosks are advertising. They are electronic billboards that will be in our public right away, using up our very limited public space. Thank you.
Thank you. That was our final speaker.
Thank you. Councilmember Vera.
Thank you. I think the city created a robust RFP that I I think, details and outlines a lot of the concerns and issues that were brought up today. One of them in terms of driver distraction. I know that kiosks, it says in here, won't be placed in the view of vehicles. Will be in a way that you can't see them as you're driving, correct?
I don't have the answer to that question. It depends. We have consulted with our Public Works Director who, won't dispute the studies, but also isn't concerned about driver distraction
All right, well,
on sighting.
all right, I appreciate that. I think in terms of releasing or sending out the RFP, it gives us an opportunity to see what companies are willing to do, can do, or will not do. Once that data is collected, it can come back in front of council, and we determine that, hey, these are up to our standards, then great. If not, then there's no reason why we should move forward if they don't really meet the criteria as the city set out to have them meet. I do agree that there is a value to the city in terms of wayfinding, in terms of community announcements. I agree with Mr. Memphi's comments about the DBA as well as the R6 being involved, and I believe that's addressed in one of the bullet points that various community organizations will be part of the conversation. So I think most of everything we discussed, the 15-foot, 15 square feet minimum or maximum in terms of screen size. I don't know why we don't go out with the RFP, determine what, if anything, is up to these businesses' standards and what we can apply, and if we don't like it, then we just don't go with it. But I think it gives us the opportunity to really bring the community into a deeper conversation and to see really what's available and what's not available. I think that's it for now. I want to, I'll wait and I'll pass it around and see if I have any more comments. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Erickson.
So, Mayor, thank you. This has been going on for some time, this discussion. I really appreciate staff for putting the ordinance together and also the RFP. I think they are really addressing what we need to do. And for the discussion in general, I would say that the process of this is that we need the change of the zoning ordinance to be able to send out an RFP, because no company would bid on something if there wasn't a clear zoning regulation, so they knew what that was going to be. So that's the starting point. And then all these different questions and issues and, where they're going to be placed, how many, and everything else with regards to ADA and so on, that is really going to be addressed in the responses we get back from our request for proposal. And I think that staff has done an excellent job in covering all the important and detailed issues that we would like to get an answer on. And that's, when we have those answers, we have hopefully a number of bidders, and we can compare, and we can then make a very educated decision if we want this or if we don't want it. So I think that's the process, and I think it's important for everyone to understand that this is just to open the possibility, and then we can look at all the details. And I'm for the ordinance, the zoning code amendment, and I'm also supporting that we authorize the release of the RFP. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Souza.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for the presentation and for all the work. Just for the public, the zoning code amendment, did it include commercial advertising? Thank you. And then is it only for, I mean, I know it's commercial advertising, but is it only for local businesses? Thank you. And then can you clarify why?
We need to, yeah, we
Oh,
need
sorry.
to put something on the record because
Sorry,
the
can you
minutes won't
verbalize
reflect. Thank you.
I'll defer to Assistant City Attorney.
The zoning code amendment does allow commercial advertising. It is not limited to local advertising. I think those are your two questions.
Thank you. Yeah, that answered my question. And then just clarifying questions. And then can you clarify why did the zoning code have to be changed in order for this conversation to happen, in order to get a lot of the just basic details?
The zoning code, the sign code specifically, as currently on the books, does not allow for kiosks or any sorts of related items in the public right-of-way. And so in order to allow for wayfinding kiosks, which would include, electronic messaging and commercial advertising, an amendment needs to be adopted to allow for that use of the public right-of-way and public property. I keep saying public right-of-way, but we're expanding it to all of public property.
But that, I'm sorry if I'm not understanding, but why does that have to, why does the zoning code need to change to have that conversation? Because that's just, what I'm hearing you say is that the zoning code needs to be changed to allow kiosks, but that doesn't prevent us from having a conversation, or am I misunderstanding something?
The sign code, as it's currently written, does not allow electronic signs in the city, period.
So we can't have a conversation about electronic signage without changing the zoning code?
No, you can certainly have a conversation. I think the direction that staff received from a majority of the council was to proceed with a program which we weren't able to do without amending the zoning code first, because the zoning code didn't allow for such a program that was contemplated by the majority of the council.
Okay, it seems a little out of order to me, but thank you for that. This is kind of where it's really confusing. It seems out of order to me. I've received several calls from the community, comments on social media, just are concerned about advertising. The issue actually for me is with the framing of this conversation. Is it informational? Is it wayfinding? Is this advertising? It's come before council, now it's back. We haven't heard from from the chamber. I was able to speak with a representative from Berkeley. It does fund a position for their Visit Berkeley, and it generates about $900,000 a year. I think it was Miss Barbara. She said there's 31 units, and that's what they said. He said overall he supports them. He's pleased with them. However, there was no data to support. It helps older adults with memory loss, with wayfinding. It doesn't help with people's phones whose batteries have died. It doesn't drive attendance at council meetings. It doesn't affect tourist behavior. He does say it does help possibly with tourist behavior because they're not looking down at their phones for navigation, which might indicate to someone who might rob them because they're not looking up and down. So they might go to the kiosk, but one might say the robber might know to just look at people looking at the kiosk. And then there's just no data one way or the other to support if it drove traffic to businesses. I really want this to make sense. It's being pitched as a wayfinding community service. My colleagues didn't know if that there was an advertising component to it. In other conversations, I was scolded for asking about financial information. I'm really confused. So I just think we need to pause. I'm concerned about the budget for sure. If we want to have a conversation about advertising, let's have that. Let's have a conversation about advertising. I think that needs to be a citywide community conversation. We need to do that before we do anything else. I just think people don't know what is going on here. So I think we should pause, let people know that we're changing the zoning code to allow advertising, and then have a conversation, do we even want these? And then if people want that, great, and then continue the process. That's where I'm kind of at. I'm not against these. If the DBA thinks that the businesses want it and the community wants it, that's great. It's like my guard's up because it's really not following a process, and it seems there's a lot in the shadows here. So thank you, Mayor.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Thanks so much for your presentation. I can't find it. I know you put the list of the timeline since inception, where this has been heard in the public. I think there was at least a half dozen dates in that timeline. I know that there was also one of the companies that responded to the RFI had a booth at Fiesta, and I think they had another thing at maybe set up downtown in Town Plaza. I'm seeing Elaine nod her head yes. And we've talked about it in council. These are all public venues. There was outreach. There can be argument as to whether or not outreach was enough. I think that argument will always come up. Regarding Berkeley and data, I just looked it up. They've only had their kiosks for 2 years, like this month. And I don't know, it's up to the city or agency to do the data collection specific to, whatever information they want to gather. We don't know if they actually attempted to gather that information or not. Anyway, some thoughts. I don't know if these would necessarily be included in the RFP, but to be considered. I know that I went to West Side COG meeting in West Hollywood last month and walked out in front of their library, and they've got a digital kiosk under their bus shelter. I'd like to know if those are options. Obviously, someone does it. So I think that's a public space and a public right-of-way that's already pretty much taking up the amount of real estate and more that a digital kiosk would need. So I think that's an opportunity. I think we have over 130, I'm not saying we do 130 of these, but there's 130 bus stops plus in Culver City, so there's ample locations to consider because those usually take up quite a bit of space. And then looking at the ADA requirements, it requires 4 feet of pedestrian space plus 18 inches from the curb. I know that we said these have to be, the screens have to be 15 square feet, which I think is 3 by 5, so it's 3 plus the frame. I'm going to say they're 4 feet wide, so you got 4 plus 18 a foot and a half, so you got 9.5, 10 feet of sidewalk of public right-of-way that you need to find to put one of these things. I don't think there's a lot of those spaces in Culver City, so it's not like these are going to be proliferated on every street corner in town. They're going to be in very specific places that can accommodate that space. So I think that's a good thing. We'll have that just kind of natural selection to keep them from being everywhere. Distracted drivers, I really struggle with that. I don't know about anyone else, but I'm watching the car in front of me and, any pedestrians or cyclists that are riding around. I'm not looking off to the sidewalk. Other questions in terms of RFP, whether or not these are appropriate, take it or leave it. in the potential revenue stream, can we have, are there tiers? Like, do we, like, if there's 10 kiosks, could the city receive this much, 20, whatever it is? It'd be good to know that. Can there be, if it doesn't, we're not restricting local advertising. It's just that it's open to both national and local. If there is a local business, can it be kind of neighborhood specific? So for example, if we had a kiosk in Town Plaza, could Akasha put their own ad on that, but Akasha's ad isn't necessarily down by, Westfield? Can it be targeted? Those are questions for me. I'm curious with the putting the RFP out, are we going to be intentional with that? And we have a list of all the potential vendors that could do this, and we send it directly to them, or we just post it on our, I can't remember what it's called, but our RFP site?
Right, so it will get posted to Planet Bids, which is our RFP site, but we'll also send out information to vendors that we know that provide these services as well.
Okay.
And Vice Mayor, something I want to share is you're expressing your concerns and thoughts. At least in my mind, if the city decides to go down this path, the RFP is not the end of the process. It's just the submission of proposals. So if we have a proposal that the council likes and we get direction to proceed, then there will be a negotiation process, my guess, somewhat drawn out, probably with a lot of interaction. So there's the RFP, it's not important that it anticipate every detail at this point, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I'm going to let you all decide what I'm requesting is nonsense or if it's appropriate for the RFP. And yeah, just from community concerns, I don't know if Dimitri's in the ether space, but I'm sure he knows how many miles of sidewalk we have. I'm sure it's, hundreds, if not over 1,000 miles, and we're talking like 30 of these maybe in the city. I think it's a pretty small impact. And then again, the whole reason I requested that we explore this again, I didn't realize that we had once explored it before, is that wayfinding. Actually, it's not the wayfinding. For me, it was an opportunity to get community information out. It's another way for the community to find out, things that we talk about up here on the dais that we're concerned that the community doesn't know about. It's an opportunity for that. I think if every one of these wayfinding kiosks, if we end up doing this, on the frame it says information, so people know that this is a source of information for Culver City, I think that would be great. And they'll know, touch here, and you can find out what's going on. Or if you happen, I think there's, different ways that these slides rotate. And I think from what I've heard from one of the companies that responded to the RFI is that, we get one out of whatever number. When that comes up, you can see that there's, we got the downtown concerts or whatever the city decides to put on there. So I think that's valuable. And yeah, it's not radical. Santa Monica's got them. I saw them in West Hollywood. These are peer cities of ours in the West Side COG. I don't know. I don't think Beverly Hills has it. I don't know. And I was in San Francisco. I saw them. I know San Diego's got them. So, and Berkeley was mentioned and many others. So it's not a radical idea. I know that we appreciate that we don't have billboards, and I personally don't consider those. I'm glad that we don't have the, 20-foot wide by 10 feet tall billboards on our commercial corridors. These are, in my opinion, and I know that people might differ from my opinion, but to me, these are elegant, technological, like kind of like big iPhones, they look like to me, from what I've seen. And it could be a great way. And then the revenue. We'll find out what that is when we get our proposals, but we are running a deficit. So this is an opportunity to shrink that. So I'm going to be in favor of adoption of the ordinance and for publishing the RFP. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All right. In some capacity, since about 2019 or so, there's been an effort to have some sort of billboards or kiosk program in Culver City. And with that effort, there's been pretty sustained community concerns. One of the things tonight that I appreciate from the public is that most of the comments weren't really distracted by the sort of wayfinding, label of these kiosks, and folks pretty clearly name them as billboards and advertisements. And I think that's important to just name it, and that we should be really clear about that. And I really think it's important to have more intentional and successful community engagement. That seems to be something that we hear up here a lot in terms of wanting to have community engagement, particularly with a community that feels very strongly about not having billboards so much that ordinances were passed to prevent them. At the core, definitely we need a strong business community. We need a strong, it's great that we have great corporate partners in our community. Of course, we want to support our overall community and improve the quality of life. Here we should be tasked with sort of solving our community's problems and making life a little bit better for our neighbors and community members. Before us tonight is a change of an ordinance that was put in place for a reason. So I just want to lift that up because I think we should be clear about what's happening with the motion that will likely pass by our council majority this evening. I just want to lift up in this space that I do have a concern with just focusing on bus stops for locations. Because that space is designed for folks to try to ride the bus and for shade and hopefully to encourage folks to participate in our transit and increase transit ridership. And hopefully that there's more study and strategy around the location of our kiosks. I do appreciate that it was very clear that there be focus on what the revenue estimation there is. And just to be honest, personally, that's the thing that I'm most attracted to out of this package or suggestion, since almost 90 to 100% of us have little wayfinders in our pockets anyway. So I think at its core, this is an invitation for advertisements. But again, we could just be honest about that. If the intention is to have more community engagement, I hope that we look at the effectiveness of this device in other neighborhoods. And if it is not effective, does that mean that we don't have this ordinance or that we roll back the ordinance if community engagement is a key tool or something that we're looking for from these devices? And the last time we had a conversation about community engagement, or I think we were talking about surveys, I'm not sure that we have a clear focus on what the best method is for community engagement in Culver City. And so I think we might want to focus on what that looks like before we say that we're using this digital kiosk as a tool for community engagement, especially not knowing the efficacy of this sort of technology as a use for that. Another thing that I'd like to lift up in this space is that I think it's important that we engage all the stakeholders in our community, not just our businesses for placement. Of course, we should include our businesses because they are valuable stakeholders, but it is my hope that we can include all stakeholders, religious organizations, families, folks who work in our community, as many folks as we can to hear from from folks about how they feel about this placement. And again, just to be clear, I am open to revenue generation sources. I think we're at an almost $18 million deficit for this fiscal year. But just concurrently, two things can be true. I think we should be honest with our neighbors and community members about what this ordinance is and what we are opening the door to in our community. So I just want to lift that up in the space. And I guess we can go to a vote. I think you have consensus.
We have a motion to adopt the ordinance. And Melissa, request for proposals for interactive digital kiosks and related advertising revenue sharing programs on the public right-of-way and provide direction to the city manager by Vice Mayor O'Brien, and a second by Councilmember Vera. And we will do a voice vote. How do you vote, Councilmember Vera?
Aye.
Councilmember Puza?
Abstain.
Councilmember Erickson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor O'Brien?
Aye.
Mayor McMorrin?
Abstain.
That motion passes. 3 ayes, 2 abstain. Abstain from Mayor McMorrin and Councilmember Puza.
All right. And just as a reminder, we are not doing A2, and that will be moved to a future agenda. Our next agenda item is A3, adoption of a resolution appointing a delegate and alternate delegate as a part of the general membership of the Independent Cities Association and rescinding a resolution. Can we have a brief staff report?
Yes, this is City Clerk Jeremy Bocchino. The current representatives to the Independent Cities Association, or ICA as we like to call it, is Councilmember Erickson, who is the delegate, and Councilmember Vera, who is the alternate delegate. And I believe Councilmember Vera has been the alternate delegate since 2021, and I'm not sure how long Councilmember Erickson has been on the ICA. But at the June 24th City Council meeting, Councilmember Erickson announced he would be leaving the ICA board and requested and received consensus to agendize appointment of a new delegate and new alternate delegate to the ICA board. So we ask you at this time, Council, to nominate and appoint delegates and the alternate delegate for the general membership of the ICA, and adopting a resolution and rescinding Resolution 2024 R003. We have no speakers.
Councilmember Erickson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, so this comes about that we all know that I'm termed out later this year, and ICA sort of election period board term is basically September to end of July or end of August. So for me, it made sense that I should actually step out of the function as the delegate because I will have to do that when we come around to Christmas anyway. So I think it makes sense for the city because that would be much more beneficial for the city to have someone who can serve a full year as delegate and make some inroads into the ICA organization. So in my mind, Albert Vera would be the perfect delegate because he's been the alternate and participated over the last number of years in seminars and meetings, and Emma O'Brien to be the alternate, who also has been to, since he got elected, he has been to the seminars and conferences, and also has established himself as a well-known entity, which is important because what we're talking about here is we're talking about 42 cities who are members, and effective in the organization, you need relationships and you have to be known. So my motion would be that we put Councilmember Vera as the delegate and Councilmember O'Brien as the alternate. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilmember Vera.
Thank you. No other comments. I can second his motion, but I'll pass it around.
Councilmember Fusen.
I support that. I just want to say thanks to Councilmember Erickson for his service. And how, can we clarify how many years he served? Councilmember Erickson, is he still on? Sorry to put you on.
Since 2017.
Oh, wow.
And I got on the board immediately for some odd reasons. And then, I also served as president 2 years ago in the organization. So, been some time. Thank you for the question, and thank you for your nice words there, Councilmember Pusa.
Great, thanks. I support the motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I support. I'm happy to be a alternate. I really do enjoy attending the conferences and interacting with our fellow independent cities. And I do also thank Councilmember Erickson. I've been fortunate enough to be at three conferences with him, and he did add significant value and represented our city really well. So much appreciated. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you all for your comments, and Councilmember Erickson for your service. Do we have a motion in a second?
We have a motion by Vice Mayor O'Brien and a second by Councilmember Vera to adopt a resolution appointing Councilmember Vera as the delegate and Vice Mayor O'Brien as the alternate delegate to the ICA. How do you vote, Councilmember Vera?
Aye.
Councilmember Pusa?
Aye.
Councilmember Erickson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor O'Brien?
Aye.
Mayor McMorrin?
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Can we move now to public comment for items not on the agenda?
We have no more speakers.
Do we have any items for members? Councilmember Erickson? I guess that means nothing. Let us know if that's not true.
Wait.
Sorry, it takes time to unmute my phone here. So, no, I have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Vera.
Just a request to adjourn in memory of, but no other comments.
To do that, thank you. Councilmember, we'll just go to him when it's time.
Councilmember Vera, whom?
Captain Don Erickson from the police department. He just can I make a brief comment with him?
Sure,
Mayor?
sure.
30-year service with Culver City Police Department from the 60s through the 90s. He received a Medal of Valor March 23rd, 1976, where he walked into a armed robbery of the 7-Eleven at Washington and Huron. And trying to apprehend the suspects. He was shot several times. Anyway, he passed away June 13th, and I'd like to adjourn in his memory.
Okay. Councilmember Pusa.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. There's a 22% chance that this year will go down as one of the top 5 warmest years in history. And we know that this past weekend there was 124 degrees in Palm Springs, so there is great urgency with our climate crisis. So I was wondering if I can get 3 nodding heads to agendize Culver City becoming a emergency climate city. So this would mean getting grants to do the work, to develop a climate plan, climate budget, applying to become a C40 city or a safe city, among other things that can to be determined.
I see nodding heads from Vice Mayor O'Brien. Councilmember Vera, Mayor McMorrin, Councilmember Puza, and that works. So we will bring that back as an agenda item.
That's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Mayor.
Okay, I'd just like to make a request in light of the Trans-Latin Coalition that would go probably straight to the Equity Subcommittee, but I'd like to have a discussion about how we might either incorporate them in the REAP work or find ways to incorporate the coalition and the anti-hate work. Maybe we won't be able to do it this year because I think the trainings have already been solidified, but potentially moving forward and just having that conversation about gauging what potentially engaging either their trainings or with a racial equity action plan might look like with our equity HR team in the equity subcommittee. So I think we need permission to talk about it.
I see nodding heads from Vice Mayor O'Brien, Council members Vera and Puza. And is that to remand it to the subcommittee?
Yeah, so we can have a conversation.
The council subcommittee.
The council subcommittee.
Thank you.
And I'm sure if there's overlap with the ERAC, they will inform them. And hopefully there is. The last thing I'd like to lift up is from Mr. Sims, who is seeking off-cycle sponsorship of the Cat Kids show from the Kirk Douglas Theater for a minimum sponsorship for the banners. We could
I
have that
see nodding
conversation.
heads from all members that are present, all four. I mean, in person.
That's it for me. I'll turn it over to Councilmember Vera for the adjournment in memory.
Thank you, Mayor. Get a motion to adjourn in memory of Captain Erickson from the Culver City Police Department.
A motion by Vice Mayor O'Brien, a second by Councilmember Vera. How do you vote? Councilmember Vera.
Aye.
Councilmember Puza.
Aye.
Councilmember Erickson.
Aye.
Vice Mayor O'Brien.
Aye.
Mayor McMorrin.
Aye.
The time is 10:15.
Thank you.
Could reflect that we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you on August 12th.
Yes.
That's the next regular city council meeting. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. You can go have breakfast.
Yeah, it's 7:50 or 7:16 here now. So yeah, it's time to make breakfast.